Regular City Council meeting, July 11th, 2016. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call show looks as though everybody's here. Welcome back, Bob. Hope your trip was good.
Mahalo.
He went native.
You had to do that, didn't you? Approval of the minutes of June 27th, 2016.
Move the minutes.
A second.
Discussion. Paragraph 1 says in the second sentence on the agenda, Council Member Kurtzwell states she has researched the Open Meetings Act regarding closed sessions, and she understands instead of the, that a determination, and then made in a rather than of a closed session. So that there was that correction. And I thought I had one more. On page 7, section 3, discussion of the downtown. It's in the first paragraph, last sentence, or second to last sentence. They could turn that into a cultural arts building as it was originally, period. And then it said she further stated she believes that the Cultural Arts Commission rather than the. Then on page 8, section 4, manager's report, second paragraph, first sentence, Councilmember Kurtzwell stated that she spoke with not HRC. I spoke with Pat from Miller Canfield.
I did catch that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That would be it. Thank you.
I have one, one minor one, very simple one. On page 2, under the all the way at the bottom, CM 6316, motion to appoint Chief Collins. All at the bottom, just name spelled wrong, my name.
I'm sorry. Where is that?
Page 2 at the bottom, all the way at the bottom.
Second last
Second
sentence.
to last sentence. It says Mayor
Oh, I
Gales.
gotcha.
It's minor.
Sorry, I couldn't locate that.
That's all I had. Any further? We have a motion to support the discussion. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Well, they were amended. It should have been
Yeah.
a new motion.
Okay. Back it up.
Withdraw the motion.
I don't need to withdraw it. I mean, the minutes were changed. So somebody make a motion if they want to amend it.
I make a motion that the minutes be approved as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the bills?
Bob, I was just wondering, these on page 2, the movies in the park, is that rental cost for all 3 movies?
It is.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
And we had about between 25 and 30 short.
It wasn't a great night that night, was it?
No,
Yeah.
I do have a question regarding the city attorney bills. I didn't see the bills in our packet for June uploaded on the city website, and per email communications, I thought those were going to be provided today.
I provided them. I had trouble getting through some of the things I had to get through today. I provided them to the city, to the acting city manager and clerk. I can provide them as soon as possible.
Okay, because
Actually, my assistant has not finished the redaction yet.
what I was looking for was, what I noticed was the attorney invoices were, for May, were uploaded on the website, and then for June, they weren't uploaded on the website, so I requested that. And specifically, I was looking for the food truck costs for how many hours were spent on that ordinance. So if you can get that whenever, that'd be great.
If I can just, so the bill that I've redacted this morning was the May bill. The June bill is just being finalized and has not been issued yet.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
And I'll be, just for FYI, I will be trying to get those redacted invoices because of the timing of my office's completion and issuing. I'll be trying to get those for the second meeting in the month.
Okay, thank you.
Move the bills.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye. Appointments, South Lyon Hotel Reconstruction Coordinating Committee.
Got the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Cross it out. My mistake, I apologize. Approval of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be added or subtracted from the agenda
Mayor?
this evening?
The city attorney has requested that we add old business item number 1, which would be the second reading of the Consumers Energy Gas Franchise Ordinance.
I'll move the agenda, amended agenda.
I'll support.
Discussion. I have some questions. I just wanted to ask a little bit about the agenda item, item number 6 regarding the closed session. And I'm a little bit confused and I'm a little bit bewildered because I looked at your attorney-client letter, attorney-client privilege communication, and I looked at the documents that you attached to it. And the documents that you attached to it are not confidential. I mean, they're all foiable. So I'm a little bit confused as to why we're going into a closed session when the documents that you attached to the letter contain public information. I mean, you pulled information off of the Michigan Municipal website. You know, you've attached a contract which is clearly foiable. And I guess I'm not really sure as to whether or not a closed meeting is appropriate. I mean, we know what the issue is, but I think your issue is a little bit too broad. Because it's my understanding, as reading the Open Meetings Act and the case law for closed meetings, is that you have to state the purpose for what you are going into the meeting. And then I read your attorney-client letter, and your attorney-client letter is very narrow in scope. So if we're going into this meeting to discuss issues other than what is in your attorney-client letter, then I'm not going to approve the agenda.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm trying to get a feel, because it's very broad. The discussion is regarding the city manager's absence, but that is not what the focus is of your letter.
Yes, it is.
It's about a very specific statute, and that's it.
It's about more than one statute. It's about the legal issues surrounding the city manager's absence.
Regarding 2 statutes, and that's it.
There's more than 2 statutes.
Well, you've cited 2.
The discussion would be about the attorney-client privilege letter. I'm not sure, I'm not sure I know what your point is.
My point
your
is
question
that I
is.
don't want this going off into some discussion regarding matters pertaining to her absence that have no relevance to your letter, but rather an opportunity for council members to explore whatever they want to explore.
No.
So it's going to stay very confined to a discussion of those 2 statutes, and that's about it.
It's mainly to advise you about my letter, which is in writing, and really answer questions and have a discussion about my written attorney-client communication to the city council.
Okay, these 2 statutes are not confidential. They're federal statutes. But, okay.
But the legal issues surrounding a particular circumstance in the city is subject to attorney-client privilege.
I understand. Every employer has the same decision to make that the city has to make. That's not confidential. But That's okay. I just want to make sure that any variance from that attorney-client's privilege letter, I am going to oppose in a closed session. That's all I'm saying.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor. So we had a lot of talk last council meeting because we had a closed session, and I think it's worth repeating again that we had several meetings last year. Actually, I looked at it, 5 of the first 7 meetings where we went into a closed session. And actually, it was 50% of the first half of the year we had closed session meetings. And I could tell you by sitting in these meetings that we did not go into, we made a decision, but we did not go into the public and vote on it and put it on the record. So there's some really concerning things going on just in regards to the closed session. So if we are going into a closed session, I do want to ensure that what we do discuss is limited to the attorney-client privilege letter, excuse me, and that when we make a decision that we actually vote on it. So,
Mr. Mayor, you two are killing me. Seriously, you have the right during a closed session at any point to say this is a discussion that should not be part of the closed session, and you have the right to make a motion to go back in open discussion and discuss anything that you have issues with. In the 7 meetings we've had last year that you just brought up,
Yeah.
did you ever make that motion?
well, I'll tell you what we did.
Did you
not
ever
do.
make that motion?
Well, I'm not on the witness stand here. I'm telling you what.
Because you
I,
can't answer the question. You didn't.
Well,
So you're grandstanding again. I'm getting so sick and tired of this. Every time.
well, sir.
It's unbelievable. It
Well,
is simply unbelievable.
Points made to both sides.
Fair enough.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to address the point. I can assure the council that there have been no violations of the Open Meetings Act. There were no decisions made in any closed sessions. And if there is an issue, please bring the 5 meetings to my attention. We'll review the issue and find out if there was a decision made. It's my recollection and my opinion that the city has been following the Open Meetings Act. There were no decisions made in a closed session that were not also made as a motion in an open session.
Well, from the
There is no violation of the Open Meetings Act.
well, I mean, the South Lyon collision. When we talked about that on several occasions, we never came into open session and voted on it. So I don't want to get into specifics right here, but I can tell the public right now
Well,
that
that's
we had
because-
multiple meetings, and if you look at the records, we did not vote on it.
Why don't we bring this up at another time?
Fair enough.
Some did not want to look at it, so.
Well, it does seem pertinent if you end up cataloging the things that you thought were grievous infractions. That makes it a lot easier for people to review and determine if they thought that they were grievous too, so.
Well, I'd welcome any looking from the, whatever agency wants to look into it.
Harvey?
There is a motion on the floor, and this discussion is not pertinent to that motion.
Fair enough.
Order of the day. We haven't voted on it. It's been moved. I believe it was seconded.
All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay. Appointments. South Lyon Hotel Reconstruction Coordinating Committee, Bob Donahue. Derek Mashburn. He's a friend of mine, but he wanted to be on the planning commission as well. From what I can tell you, he's...
Hey, John, go by the agenda. Bob's being appointed to the committee.
It is.
The coordinating committee.
Oh, it's all one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
It's all run together.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
right.
Bob.
No, it's not.
Start that again. Appointment for the South Lyon Hotel Reconstruction Coordinating Committee, Bob Donahue.
Yeah.
I'll move to appoint Bob Donahue to the South Lyon Hotel Reconstruction Coordinating Committee.
I'll second.
Discussion? I think it's probably a good, just a good idea, and I'd like to hear council's comment on it, is that the South Lyon Hotel Reconstruction Coordinating Committee, if we sort of get a little bit of foundation from you, sort of, because I'm going to vote for your nomination, so I'm going to vote for you. But I think it's probably good that we add some foundation, some definition to exactly what this committee is going to do. So just maybe if you could put together maybe a couple paragraphs, what your goals are, what your objectives are, what you plan to achieve, by it. The purpose, I understand, this is an advisory committee, so you will act in a capacity of recommending to city council. How many other people do you want on the committee? How many do you propose? So I just think just a little bit that we could sort of attach to the
How about let him talk?
record,
Jesus.
and you sort of set the foundation as to what this committee is. Is this particular committee governed by the Open Meetings Act?
I'd have to look into it. I don't know who's on the committee, I'd have to look into it. I don't know what its purpose is. Does it have an organizational charter type document?
Could you speak to that, Bob?
Would you like to just,
If I may.
yes?
Yeah.
I saw this as an ad hoc committee, so a temporary committee, to assist the owners of the hotel, to offer them economic development assistance, all in the best interest of the city. So it's actually, while we're assisting the property owners, we're also acting on behalf of the city. And so looking out for the city's best interest. It's purely advisory, as you mentioned. Any actions that anything that would require action by the city certainly would bring that up. Primarily, it's going to deal with finance, and I think there will be some confidential parts of that. The financial resources that are available include local, county, state, and certainly they need to provide all the information that they can to the city. It could come down to a public financial question, such as tax abatement. And so all of the financial information, which I intend to give you every 2 weeks to kind of keep you up to date, instead of all of a sudden you get this load, and then summarize it at some point, if and when commercial tax abatement were required as part of the financial package. So we will primarily advise the owners on what are the best programs available to get them back on the road.
So you don't intend for this committee to enter into contracts or sign anything or obligate the city to anything or
In no way.
make policy decisions or anything like that, strictly? Okay.
Correct, in no way.
City attorney may want to look at the Attorney General opinion, 6935. Might help you a little bit. Thanks.
I think this is a good thing, though, Bob. You're a great point of contact. You have an understanding of the turf, and you have connections with people that are instrumental in pulling this off. So I think that's going to be really valuable to the hotel getting back on its feet.
Thank you.
Good move.
Motion support, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Derek Mashburn to the Downtown Development Authority Board. He came to me at one time for the Planning Commission. He filled out his app for that, and then he found out there was a DDA position available, and he talked to Bob. And I think he'd have been great for both. He is a friend of mine, but he went to school for engineering at Kettering. He's a business owner downtown, and he also lives downtown. And I think he's a perfectly good person to come in and bring some insight into the DDA and help support Bob and everybody else what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to say, I think Derek would be a great fit. I mean, he used to live in Green Oak, and then he moved downtown because he's really committed to our downtown. So that shows a lot of commitment. And being right on the corner there, he really has a pulse. And just all of our business owners really have a vested interest, but especially being on the corner, he really is in the heart of the downtown. So I think this is a perfect fit. So with that being said, I'd like to make the...
I just wanted to, I understand Mr. Mashburn is invested in the downtown. I think that's fantastic, and I'm all in favor of him being a part of the DDA. I just wanted to see if anyone spoke with any other members from the DDA and see if they voiced any of their opinions? No?
And I talked to Bob. That was-
No? It was just an appointment? Okay. I didn't know if there was any kind of discussion with DDA at all. And if there was, what was it?
No, this came up after the last DDA meeting, after the June meeting, and the next DDA meeting is July 14th.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are there any other vacancies?
No, it's the only one.
The reason I like Derek, if anybody has been to the Corner Cafe, is that he has a wonderful assistant by the name of Carly. So I have to believe that if we get Derek, we're going to get Carly too. So this is a win-win for everybody. This is just a great team downtown, and boy, do I support this one.
So, yeah, with that said, I'd like to make the motion to appoint Derek Mashburn to the DDA Board of Directors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. Anything that's not on the agenda that you'd like to speak tonight? Come on up to the mic, state your name, address.
Carl Richards, 390 Lennox. Greetings, council, administration. There's a whole lot of things to talk about, but I'll keep it right on the brick road here and cover the important ones as fast as I can. Now, first one involves our Historical Society, as usual with me. Maybe you have seen this flyer in the windows here in town, places. It's supposed to be on the web page, and maybe you've received one in your emails. We have a historical program coming up on July 19th at 7 p.m. At our Freight House. We expect quite a large attendance on this. And this involves a presentation by an Oakland County development man engaging in railroad history. Okay? And I thought you'd like to know about that. If you notice this picture of this locomotive, and this is a coal-fired locomotive. This is our witch's hat sitting right next to it, if you've noticed that. Well, if you think in time and try to correlate places and things, okay, that witch's hat hasn't been sitting where the railroad train was coming through in about 50 years or close to it, 40 years. This picture is from the early 1950s. Okay, and it was taken in color, and that is a coal-fired locomotive, and that is our witch's hat, and that is up at the depot location on Lake Street, and that is on the Grand Trunk main line. Okay, and you can also see the one of the two sidings that was with it. Okay, at that time. And in the middle of this train engine here is a white spot. Well, that's actually the headlight of that's on the locomotive. And one of our most recent additions to our historical collection, and I mean very recent, okay, in the museum is we have one of these lenses. And it's an original lens from these locomotives, okay? And it's been mounted in a plaque and decorated and everything, and it's hanging above our entryway in the main part of our museum in the front room. And I think it's quite a cool thing to have a lens from a major locomotive, Pratt & Whitney or whoever made it, you know, back in those days, okay? And this is a coal-fired locomotive. Anyway, I'm just letting you know, okay? It's a big program. These programs don't just float in out of the blue like balloons. The committee in our staff that works on that, I'm not part of that. They research these topics and these people and go out and look at them. It's scheduled a year in advance. This one's a year in advance. Okay, with visitation, communication, one thing another, before we get these outside speakers to make a program together. It doesn't just fall together like in with, you know, like I appear to you, I'm sure, many times. They do some real planning to get those programs together. Okay, second thing I wanted to talk real quick about. Okay, I feel this is important. I finished my small project in McCaddy Park that I was alluded to. And a larger miracle took place. During Bob's absence, he has some competent supervisors or second-hand representatives that I dealt with, and they performed a miracle, okay? And that is they got the Oakland County Drain Commission to come in the summertime. Now, if you've ever tried to get the Drain Commission to come to South Lyon and Lyon Township, and there's 4 drains going through South Lyon, plus Lyon Township, okay? All right, and I have done this in the spring, but never was I successful in the summer. And these guys did it. Maybe it doesn't sound like much, but that's a major accomplishment for them to bring a crew of probably 8 to 10 guys in here and hit all these drains with some machinery. Anyway, that's my I think I've run out of time, but just to mention to you, the tube mill's still on shutdown. They'll be on shutdown the rest of this week. And it's been quite a long one for them. I hope they get everything going right, because the town really needs the tube mill, and we like the tube mill. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Carl brings a good point up about if I guess talk to the public really quick on his one point. If you haven't been to the Witch's Hat Museum, I think everybody should go at least one time, because there's quite a bit there on the history of South Lyon that most of the people take for granted. And it's a pretty amazing place considering where it's sitting at and how long it's been there and how nice it is. So I think it'd be a great opportunity for everybody to go take a look at that and see what it is. And what Carl was actually talking about, that lens just recently has been brought in. So, okay, thanks.
Hi, folks. Josie Kearns, Cultural Arts Commission. I just have 2 things. The first one is that the Humanities Surveys deadline has been extended by the Humanities Council. They gave us more money they shifted money so that we can do the survey. I hope everybody takes the survey. You can go to our website, just type in Cultural Arts, South Lyon Cultural Arts Commission. You can take it. It's like 3 minutes. And it's pretty interesting so far. So it goes until the July 30th, and then we're going to do an interpretation of what the data means, and I'm going to give all that information to everybty. So that's kind of a cool thing.
Isn't there still a button on the website too, the city's website?
Yeah, or you could go to http artscommission.wix.com/South-Lyon. It'll take you right there. So, and the other thing is, I forgot to thank last time Neil Rubin, who is a columnist for the Detroit News, who did a great article on us. I just forgot to thank him. He spent the better part of a day here with his photographer, and he wrote some really cool stuff about the town and the Atrium Gallery. That's it.
Thanks.
Frank Fogarty, 61349 Roaring Brook Drive, South Lyon, Michigan. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Enough.
Please.
Listening to an interview on the radio years back, the interviewee suggested people like people. It's just their actions that anger us. I, like each one of you, it's your actions and behavior that anger me. I am fed up with the antics of this council. Since the election, very little has been accomplished. You have 2 currencies in life. One is time and one is money. Both have been wasted. Do you realize you've met for 39.71 hours in the last 9 months? That's 1 full week. How do you put 26 weeks into a 25-week calendar? Are the department's heads being paid overtime? What else could you have done with your time? Research more items more thoroughly? Take instruction on how to run a meeting? Say hi to your families? Learn how to be civil. Personalities, preachings, pontificating, and patronizing have replaced the process of governing. The lack of respect shown to the audience by some council members who cannot tear themselves away from Facebook for fear of not satisfying everybody and thereby not end up satisfying nobody. Lack of respect has been shown by citizens who think they can hijack meetings during public comment with incessant ramblings about anything and everything that eats up time and does not serve the city well. See the charter section 4.4, citizens shall have reasonable opportunity to be heard. Agendas have been poorly prioritized. Money decisions wait till the end of the evening. In summary, I ask the mayor and council to come prepared to the meetings. to have opened and read their prepared packets prior to the call to order of 7:30 p.m., to take ownership for your actions, good or bad, to make informed decisions based on the facts, not feelings, to make suggestions regarding such things as Pumpkin Fest at Pumpkin Fest planning meetings, and do not assume the role of an HR department. You're not qualified. Laws regarding HR and HIPAA laws have been enacted and have penalties for violating them. Finally, elections have consequences, as the electorate, the citizens of South Lyon, and surrounding communities have seen, and not in very favorable light. The solution to changing lies with each member of the council. All of you are educated with various skill sets. Some skill sets need work, and some need to be acquired. Elections were 9 months ago. Recall is not an option. Resignation is. One additional question. If you were put on trial for being mayor or a council person, would there be enough evidence to convict you? So I suggest you get to work, and thank you for listening.
Hi, Kathy Swan, 44 North in Woodland Place, and I'm the president of Pumpkin Fest. I have a statement to read. The Pumpkin Fest of the South Lyon Area Executive Board is here tonight regarding the 2016 festival. First, as this community event enters its 32nd year, we would like to take this opportunity to thank the community, local businesses, the City of South Lyon Police Department, the Fire Department, the Water Department, the Department of Public Works, City Council, City Manager, and most importantly, our sponsors and volunteers. As its own 501c3 organization, Pumpkin Fest of the South Lyon area has brought 25,000 to 35,000 people to historic downtown South Lyon each year since the relocation from the middle school to downtown in 2010, as well as allowing our local nonprofit groups to raise over $100,000 over the last 6 years, $25,000 in 2015 alone. Second, as you may recall, our committee was scheduled to be on your June 13th City Council agenda to request road closures for the event, which has been the same process for 6 years. Prior to that, we had numerous meetings with department heads, submitted the 23 pages of forms and documents required for the road closure request. However, on June 12th, one of the Pumpkin Fest executive board members received a phone call from a city council member. The council member stated that the festival would need to comply with his unrelated demands or jeopardize the road closure approval. Because of this phone call, we as a board decided to withdraw our road closure request and schedule an emergency meeting to examine our role in the community. We did, however, watch the June 13th council meeting and took note of the following comments from council regarding the community festival. Comments from the mayor of the city of South Lyon. The downtown businesses have been excluded from the festival. The festival seems to have lost its focus and is being ran by outside people. The business owners are not happy. Businesses are kind of being told in a complex manner that they can't be involved, and the rules seem to be made up as they go by the board. Comments from Councilmember Rizzi. Obviously, we have a problem if the group, the festival board, doesn't even want to come up here and explain their position. Is Pumpkin Fest going to reimburse Chad Lindsay $3,500? They were the ones that said he couldn't sell there. Move the beer garden tent and main stage to the Whipple Street parking lot. Comments from Councilmember Kurzweil. These events come into our town, and we are granting them a privilege to use our public roads and sidewalks, and the privilege to use our public parking lots, and they need to understand because they have been given the privilege of control for 3 days over public property that they need to relinquish control over private property. So I'm opposed to Pumpkin Fest as long as they have any control over private property. Comments from Councilmember Kivel. My approval of Pumpkin Fest is contingent on the Pumpkin Fest Board approving the use of the coffee shop lot for a food vendor. We are not here tonight to refute all the comments made, although many are completely unfounded and are incorrect, and most are outside of the festival's control. We are here to share these examples and express our concern for the continued lack of support for this community event. The council seems to continue to scrutinize the event, not only in their meetings, but also on various social media sites. The festival requires road closure approval only from the council. That's the only thing. Yet year after year, the council has taken the road closure approval as an opportunity to dictate the parameters of this community event. The Pumpkin Fest Board has taken the past several weeks to discuss how to proceed with this year's festival, and after much research and discussion, we feel privileged to announce that the 2016 festival will change venues to the James F. Ashison Memorial Park located in New Hudson. This was a very difficult decision, and trust me, it was not taken lightly. While this change in venue will involve many more hours of planning and preparation by our volunteers in a very short time frame, we feel a lot of the concerns raised by council will be addressed, and we are excited about the possibilities and are working to make this the best Pumpkin Fest yet. In moving the event, we will be able to create even more opportunities for our local nonprofit groups, and we will be able to accommodate even more visitors to the event. As a note, the parade, the Pumpkin Fest run, the craft show, the Scarecrow contest will remain in their current locations. We will be working hard to get the word out about the changes for the 2016 Pumpkin Fest of the South Lyon area. Please stay up to date by following us on Facebook and by visiting our website. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, how set in stone are we about these rules of public comment? Because that's a huge deal. Are we not allowed to say anything about that until discussion of downtown area? Because I feel very strongly that some of the council members' comments do not reflect all of our feelings and comments.
I kind of agree with Mary a little bit. I mean, some of us have made those comments, and I agree. We made those comments. But also, we're taken out of context also. There's a lot of good comments that were made the same evening over that. I've lived downtown for 26 years, and I love the Pumpkin Fest downtown. All we wanted to have is some communication, some discussion on some of the parameters. That's what my intent is. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I know what we said in the meeting that night. Approving the parade should be normal, but it was just the whole 10th comments that we're getting from a lot of the business owners aren't made up. They're asking us questions to respond to them, and we didn't have answers. So the only way to get answers to those was to ask the questions. And you're going to move the venue. So questions aren't being answered. You just decided to leave. And that's not what we want. It's not even close to what we wanted. You know, I mean, it's Pumpkin Fest to me is like the biggest thing that's in this town, and it's like I don't want it to go at all. I'm with Mary.
I'm sorry, but this is something that South Lyon needs. It's not what we want. South Lyon needs Pumpkin Fest. This has been going on for years. It's vital to South Lyon, especially with the South Lyon Hotel gone. We need something to pick up our town, and people come here from all over to enjoy Pumpkin Fest. So the fact that it's moved, I'm sure was a very calculated decision, and I'm very sorry for the fact that it may have come off that comments from council didn't seem supportive of Pumpkin Fest. But again, I just want to reiterate that that's not how all of council feels. And I'm very sorry.
Oh, I would like to just add a comment. I did not receive the email. So I heard about the email, I read about it in the minutes, and I just want to assure you that I would never return a phone call to Glenn Kivel regarding anything pertaining to how I'm going to vote on anything related to city council. So I don't know who he was going to contact and who he was going to rally on his side. I just want to let all of you know I don't talk to anybody on this council about how I'm going to vote on anything. and that includes returning emails. So whatever was going on down at that end, that's his thing. But I want to assure you that I would come to a meeting with a very, very independent way of analyzing issues. I do my own research. I would not have participated in that. I never did it on the Planning Commission, and I sure don't do it on this council. But I think also you deleted from my comment that I made at the end of the council meeting where I said, you know, I'm not going to back off my issue. I'm a private rights person. I'm an advocate for private rights. That's just how I am. I view everything in terms of I want government. I want organizations out of my life. I like my privacy. I like private property rights. But I also made a comment at the end of the meeting that I was very thankful for all the volunteers that made Pumpkin Fest what it was, and you didn't include that in your comment. So, pardon?
Is it public comment time? Can we, she's been saying for what we have.
Well, I mean, they started commenting, so I'm kind of
It's a little bit of a
tossing in
unique
mine.
situation.
So.
We're responding to someone that's on a committee that's giving us a report of why they're leaving, and I think it's a little bit of a different situation.
No, I wasn't going to come back up here, but I'm going to make one point.
Mm-hmm.
I am on a committee, but I don't report to the city council. This is not a city festival.
Mm-hmm.
We are a nonprofit 501. We bring
Mm-hmm.
the festival to you. All we ask is for your road closures. So telling me that I'm giving you a committee report, I'm not giving you a committee report. I'm giving you an
Where did I say
announcement.
that?
Huh?
Where did I say a committee report?
You just said that.
No, I just said I would, you were here talking, never mind. I can't win. Harvey?
Public comment.
I know, but it's a different situation.
It's public
Harvey.
comment. It's not. It's on the agenda. It says public comment.
I'm Marilyn Smith, and I own the resale shop in town. So having heard that the businesses downtown don't want the festival there is so untrue. Just another thing, packing the bags and leaving South Lyon, and I just wonder when it's going to stop. Pumpkin Fest is huge for South Lyon. I love when they come to town. It keeps me busy. There's maybe a couple businesses that aren't real thrilled with it, but there's far more that are than are not. Keep packing the
I
bags,
think the
man.
misconception is that that's not the comment that was made. The comment was made that the business owners want the Pumpkin Fest to be down there. They want to participate more than they feel like they've been able to. That's what the comment is. Everybody wants the Pumpkin Fest to be there.
Ryan Cottingham, 601 South Lafayette, Witch's Hat Brewing Company. I think this is a shock to all of us. I'm not happy about this. I assume a lot of us aren't. I would love to know when the city is going to realize how anti-business they are. Pumpkin Fest is a business. They're a 501c3, but they're a business. I am not at my place of business tonight working or spending time with my family because I feel like I need to be here. And I don't know why. I mean, I just sit out there. I get to talk during public comment or whenever, and you guys are, very accommodating most of the times, especially on agenda items, and it's great. But when are we going to realize that the city is not business focused and paying attention to the business? In those responses that you guys all just made, I didn't hear any we. It was I, and he said, and what's going on down there? Can't we just try to become business friendly and not have things like this happen? I mean, we created I don't even know. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Kathy, is there any hope that if some people sat down and said, what can we do to be accommodating and how can we mediate these issues that are coming forward?
Too late.
Okay, no, I just wanted to know. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Should be fun. So I have a packet for city council if they want to pass it around or look at it, but I only made one copy, so. It's in order as I go. At the last city council meeting, the mayor and I had a dialogue at the microphone. The mayor apologized at the meeting for his part in the dialogue. I thought when we walked out of the meeting, it was over. He also gave a speech about how this was not his typical manner, and he did not generally respond in that way. I was made I was made aware of a post by the mayor later on social media apologizing again for the incident, but in the same post declaring rules for city council meetings. Apparently an email was also sent to city council members. Apparently it was not over for him. To summarize the statement, it's in the packet that she has. The mayor states South Lyon has allowed more audience participation than is normal order of business. He states we need to set guidelines and we'll try to stick to it, and this is how most city council meetings across the country work. He goes on to state a list of rules, including those which citizens may only speak during public comments, no longer may they speak during the agenda item when the topic they're interested in is being discussed, must speak their name and address for the record. Citizens may only have 3 minutes. Everyone tonight's taken more than 3 minutes, I believe, and may not loan or borrow their time. Also, the council can declare an infraction and take the speaker's time away after a warning. They decide if the comment is respectful. And to contact your rep if your issue is more than 3 minutes long. This post was signed with the mayor's name. Since this is the same statement as his discussion of conduct, it is reasonable to infer a link between the last meeting and this attempt to lock down control and take a voice away from citizens who may seek to impose shortcomings and lack of transparency in the city. I only commented following on the post because I wanted to see the comments on a post referencing me made by a public official. I was later blocked from the post. The post was otherwise a public page. The post was later removed and posts added, which are included in your packet, but the most notable is commenting about shutting down the Facebook page in a clip of comedian Ron White's segment titled, "You Can't Fix Stupid." I am left to wonder who these stupid people are. Am I one of them? Is the mayor one of them? Who is he referring to? A direct quote from the original post is, quote, "We need to set some guidelines from now on and we'll try to stick to it with respect to residents and fellow city council. I also do not want to stop any audience participation. This is how most city council meetings all over the country work in regards to audience participation, so this isn't just me, So this isn't me just installing more restrictions. We just have not been following the rules ourselves. This is factually inaccurate in several ways based on my research and begins my next point, attempted violation of the Open Meetings Act, specifically Section 15.263, number 5. Open Meetings Act 15.2635 states, a person shall be permitted to address a meeting of a public body under rules established and recorded by the public body. It continues, but you can read it in your packet. The body, being the city council, has to make and establish their own rule, not a single person who may be displeased. There is no standard. It must be decided by council. Also, try to stick to it. Does this imply it will be selectively enforced? Like I said, everyone's talked for more than 3 minutes tonight. Therefore, this is just installing restrictions of his own selection. No rules have been voted on by council, and therefore, this is not our set of rules in South Lyon. There is no set of rules the city has not been following or letting go with regard to citizens speaking at meetings. Citizens have not violated or abused any rules as the mayor implies. The city of South Lyon has never codified restrictions on how long citizens can speak, or other restrictions on citizens at meetings. Now that the wheels of progress are starting to turn is not the time to add them. People are getting involved and the city is looking to attract new investment, and this is just another black eye to the city to cause people to say, same old South Lyon. Now is not the time to place a time limit on citizens who are pushing progress or have concerns. We are done with the because I said so good old boys club. I've previously heard how precious South Lyon is and how we do not want to be just like other communities. I think we all agree. We elect our officials and we trust they will make rules that benefit us, not quiet us as this attempts to do. The key idea in that is we trust that they will make the rules. I also heard from the mayor at the last meeting how knee-jerk responses and quick decisions were bad for the city in reference to the making of ordinances and weren't in anyone's best interest. This is a knee-jerk reaction and is only in the mayor's best interest. Specifically, the set of rules the mayor declared for the audience, but I think he means taxpayers and constituents, is a knee-jerk reaction to criticism voiced at the last meeting of the city's functioning and dysfunctioning, questioning of costs incurred with the city attorney that have still not been publicly disposed despite council members' requests, and also, I believe, a reaction to another citizen saying his only recourse was to speak with the city attorney or city council to resolve his issues because proper channels like the city manager were not in place or responsive. At a time when proper channels for resolving issues are already limited, this vindictive action seeks to directly restrict the access access of citizens to have their issues resolved and heard by others in the community. Sending an email to a council person for review is not a substitution for speaking at a meeting. This is not the right time to restrict the ability of citizens to address their elected officials and have the public hear their comments. There is little citizen involvement at meetings, a handful of speakers typically. This is out of the ordinary. There is not a problem of excess participation typically, that time given to citizens warrants being limited. I've only noticed an outpouring of support when there is something the citizens are unhappy with. Though this is just my opinion, that this action by the mayor is to limit citizen involvement, I have an email from the mayor that supports this opinion. I contacted a city council member to inquire into the motivation behind the mayor's declaration and my concern that the mayor was using our dialogue as leverage or a scapegoat to take speaking rights away from our citizens. The following email responses from the mayor, read verbatim: no new intentions, just following some sort of order that has always been present. If you watch other city council meetings, they don't let hardly any audience participation. South Lyon always has, but the level of respect or disrespect in today's world is changing, so it's about us leading with reason and still allowing public comments, but disruption isn't going to be tolerated anymore and never should have that's what it says just following the rules already set forth. I am deeply disheartened that the mayor would want to model and be aligning with policies with cities with, quote, hardly any audience participation. And again, those are taxpayers. And also in today's changing world will not tolerate participation. Is this ignorance that no current rules exist as he states they were already set forth? Is this a direct attempt to deceive? This is known only to him. This is not what most citizens want when they elect a mayor. One who looks to cities with hardly any audience participation as an example and restricts speech he finds disruptive. This disruption is what got food trucks back up and running at the Witch's Hat and other issues moved along. Participation is what gets you all elected. Again, there is no set of rules already set forth in the charter, codes, or ordinances for audience participation, and this is a direct attempt to silence dissenters and progress makers. Now this is where it gets good, and I'm tired of talking now. Let's leave the topic of possible motivation and address the rules themselves. As I said earlier, we trust our officials, the ones representing us, will be the ones making our rules. The mayor and city did not draft these rules. He did not work long and hard considering the right set of guidelines for our community. He didn't engage the citizens or their elected city council to brainstorm. He didn't spend long hours perfectly wording them. They are copied from the city of Ypsilanti. With a few minor exceptions, what he sent is verbatim the guide to public participation at city council meetings posted on the city of Ypsilanti's website. The mayor actually has a few changes that make it more restrictive. One, that you must state your address and you can only speak during public comments. No special skill was needed for me to figure this out. I just copy and pasted it into Google. You can do it right now on your phone. I printed a copy and highlighted the text that overlaps the mayor's Open Meetings Act violating declaration. Basically all of it. I thus conclude that he knew no rules were in existence if he got them from Ypsilanti. It's disheartening that this is the extent of respect for the citizens of South Lyon that the mayor, an elected official, would have, to plagiarize a policy made by officials elected by another city and pass it off as rules onto our community. City council should be insulted that this was sent to them for our community or even signed implying it was the mayor or city's work or property. It is completely unacceptable to me and should be completely unacceptable to all taxpayers who expect their elected officials to follow the law for this community versus plagiarize some lines from the city of Ypsilanti and attempt to use it to restrict citizens' speech. If the mayor holds in such high regard the policies voted on by the city of Ypsilanti, perhaps he would be happier as the mayor of Ypsilanti. Perhaps in a place with hardly any citizen participation, he would be more comfortable and thus able to control his responses. Also, apparently, he is supportive of restrictions on taxpayers there. I would request the council genuinely consider the seriousness of this attempted Open Meetings Act violation and how ambivalence on the topic makes them appear to their constituents. I request that the council seriously review and reflect on the laziness and ambivalence of simply plagiarizing policies from other communities and the attempt by an elected official to force them upon the constituency here for personal convenience and vindictiveness. A strong, unified statement against these acts needs to be made by City Council as soon as possible to make it clear this treatment of citizens will not be tolerated. Council should consider very closely that their mayor wanted them to be complicit in enforcing policies on this community that could be merely copied from a website and were never voted on. They should diligently investigate any past, or future statements or materials submitted to them by the mayor for approval or complaisance in light of this information.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Consumers Energy.
Old business. Tim.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is the proposed second reading of the Consumers Energy gas franchise ordinance that would grant them a gas franchise in the city of South Lyon for 30 years. They have had a 30-year gas franchise that expired in June of 2016. City Council read and approved the first reading of this ordinance as revised following the additional comments between my office and Consumers Energy's attorneys on May 23. And the public notice that was also authorized to be published was published on June 2nd. Pursuant to the charter, that proposed ordinance must be on file with the clerk's office for 4 weeks from the date of publication. That has occurred, and it is appropriate to consider a second reading of that ordinance. Attached is the 1986 ordinance. The copy of this has the header on it of May 20, 2016. There are no changes to the ordinance, as well as a copy of the charter section 12.6. And the referenced minutes, there's several portions of the 5/23, 2016 minutes to provide you with context. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have one. My memory might be failing me, but I thought back in May when we discussed the original first reading that it was like a quick procedure. We need to get it done because it was a time-sensitive document. So I was just a little confused. Was it time-sensitive? Because it's in front of us again.
There were two issues. So when I first brought this to council, we were trying to meet the deadline so that there wasn't a lapse in the franchise ordinance.
Okay.
After that point in time, I presented, so at the May 9th meeting, you also approved a different first reading of an ordinance.
Okay.
A franchise ordinance. After that meeting, the legal department for Consumers Energy indicated that the ordinance that I presented was not acceptable to them. We worked through the language, and the 5/23 ordinance was acceptable to both the city and Consumers Energy.
Okay, thank you, because my concern was just that we were meeting our deadlines and that we were okay with all that. I didn't want us to be in a breach of a deadline.
And we still have that 4-week obligation for it to be available for review.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Has there been any changes, deletions by Consumers Energy or anything from the first reading to this one?
No, there are no changes from May 23.
Okay, then I'll make the motion that we approve the second reading of the revised ordinance granting Consumers Energy a 30-year gas franchise.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New business, volunteer park athletic field development.
I mean, it's going to be on there anyway, right? Yes. We've got a color copy here anyway, so.
What you see before Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for having us here again. What we'd like to present to you is a culmination of 6 months' worth of work with the various user groups, which all was authorized by you folks back in January of this year. You authorized us to proceed of a lump sum fee of $10,000 to revise the master plan that we had originally generated through a contractual relationship we had with the Panthers. So today, what we'd like to do is give you a little bit of an insight of what the meetings were about, and then I can go through the plan in more detail in just a moment. But basically, the initial meeting was a kickoff meeting whereby which we talked to all of the groups, if you will, and understood exactly what their needs were and what their size of the field requirements were to meet those needs. The second meeting, we had a design charrette, whereby which we asked each of the groups to have, we gave them a master plan, which basically the master plan included only, I gotta get this pointed right, included only this this piece of the park, okay, which basically is wetlands and trails and whatnot that we felt were good to stay in the park. So we gave them basically a blank slate. We cut out templates for them with all their field requirements, and then the only requirement that we had for that group was pay attention to the other user groups. Okay, we're not going to put all your needs here on one site, but pay attention to the other groups so that everybody can coexist and use this park to its best use. So that was, there were 4 different committees, or 4 different groups, sports groups, that we had, as well as the Parks Commission took it upon themselves and made an effort as well to master plan the park based on the same criteria I just spoke of. From that meeting, we were asked to, in the next month, go back and sort of synthesize those 5 different plans into what we called the conceptual plan. And and then we had a meeting that was in April, and we presented that conceptual plan to the committee. And then we were basically we got an approval from the committee to proceed to the planning or to the Parks Commission, and we met with those folks in May, and got the blessing of the Parks Commission to proceed. We had one outstanding group, the lacrosse folks, that were not able to attend the April meeting and were not able to attend the May commission meeting. So we met with them individually. And that happened in April, May, June. So just recently, June 22nd, I believe. And then from June until today, we were asked to basically create the document that you have in your packet, which is what we're going to present to you today. The preliminary master plan for Volunteer Park, and what we would hope to gain at the end of this meeting would be your approval of this plan and the authorization for us to proceed. Part of the original contract, no additional money required, but part of the initial $10,000 is to go through and do an itemized cost estimate for what we've determined as Phase 1. And Phase 1 wasn't determined by me, it's determined by the committee. And again, we all have to play together. So we all gave them the committee gave each a little presentation, and we were able to determine what Phase 1 should be. And I can just tell you real quickly, where we're thinking Phase 1 is basically these 2 fields, which are lacrosse football fields, okay, shared use, a multi-purpose field, which is 240 by 390 feet. We've got a parking lot of approximately 400 cars. The details are in your packet. I can't recall exactly how many parking spaces that are there. And then we have,
They're not.
Sorry?
They're not. We've just got the cover sheet and a black and white of the map.
No, they're in the
No,
legend.
they're at the bottom.
Oh, in the bottom
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
sorry.
text. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, that's fine. And so it would also include this parking lot, an access point off of the existing road that enters the park from Dixboro up at the top of the page. And then it would include these 2 different sizes of soccer fields, as well as 2 baseball fields, okay? And a bridge crossing here for pedestrians and light-duty maintenance vehicles. And that would be it for Phase 1. So if I could just kind of walk you through the plan. I think you're a little bit familiar with what the plan was from the last meeting, and I won't bore you with this. The meeting's running long. But essentially, Phase 1 will incorporate an access point off of, again, the main park entry road, which is gravel. What we'd like to do in Phase 1 is probably build that parking lot out of gravel to match what we have existing. But I'm also going to do a cost estimate for paving that parking lot. And the reason I want to do that is because oftentimes when you gravel a parking lot, you don't get the number of cars that you would typically get, because people park haphazardly in the lot themselves, nothing's marked, okay? So we want to try to pay attention to that, and certainly if we can afford to do it in a hard surface, I would recommend that.
Is that greenery trees or is that shrubs?
This right here?
In the parking lots?
Trees.
It is?
Yeah, this is an alley, if you will, of trees. If you're all familiar with French landscape architecture, perhaps you're not, but it's a cool word. So,
And you got it in.
Yeah, you don't get many opportunities to throw
right,
it.
exactly. But canopy trees, both in the end islands as well as the main drive coming in.
That'll be attractive.
And then parking up against the the westerlymost fields here, which again is a multi-purpose field, and then 2 lacrosse football fields. And we were educated, if you will, by those 2 groups in saying that those fields could coexist because of the size of the fields and the seasons that they participate. So we felt that it would be advantageous to basically overlay those fields, if you will. And then these soccer fields down in here, U11, U9, U13 and U11, but each one of those fields, the normal field of play in soccer fields is north-south. Okay, so there's no advantageous, or there's no sun angles that are going to be, challenging one side or the other. Although they do split that time in switching fields or switching ends of the fields. But these fields also will allow for the U8 and U9 soccer participants to play in an east-westerly direction, okay, versus what we would normally play in we'll call it the designed field group would play in the north-south direction, okay, and the way soccer fields are designed is that the high point is in the center, okay. So that there's no advantage to anybody playing in an east-west because they're playing both over the same hill, if you will, in the center. We would also like in phase 1 to incorporate 2 pavilions. Actually, we're calling them restrooms, concessions, potentially storage areas. We did talk with the groups, and everybody was an advocate for additional storage. And on-site storage, so that there was not only the field lining equipment, but also some of the goals and the things like that. We're still working through a little bit of those details, and I think, as the plan develops and goes forward in implementation, I think yet there's still some things to figure out.
Is the expectation to use city water, the pump that's there right now, to drive the flushing of the toilets and things of that nature there?
It is. We've talked about composting toilets.
Okay.
We've talked about a number of different things. Now, one of the things that we learned in the last exercise with the Panther group and speaking with Bob, we don't have many utilities here.
No, they're a long ways away from each other.
And they're a long ways away. So that is going to be a big ticket item. Right. So we need to understand that. I guess it's public knowledge, but I was approached by a developer in Lyon Township saying that he had some property that abutted this park. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but that's the township, okay? So we don't know if there's a shared use there, shared opportunity for utilities, but something that we want to investigate further. Certainly working with Bob and working with HRC, we'll have a better idea of where those utilities are and what kind of dollars we're talking about bringing them to the site. And we'll investigate that as part of this analysis, this cost analysis, if you will. Any questions thus far?
Yeah, I got a bunch of them.
One question?
Well, I was kind of curious here. So,
you want me to finish first, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Maybe,
That's kind of what I
maybe
thought
I'll
we were
answer some
shooting
questions.
for.
Maybe not. This is an existing drain that comes through the site. Okay, hence the crossings, the bridge crossings, in a couple of different points, one here and one here. But because of the length and the requirements for that, I think probably in phase 1 we're going to get away with just one of them. Because most of the pathway development that you see here and any of the uses to the south of the site will not be implemented as part of phase 1. I mentioned earlier that part of phase 1 are these 2 fields and the access with the alley of trees coming through. And these are both 300-foot baseball fields, and they will be fenced. We will have a line item in there for lighting as well. so we can entertain that going forward. The fields, all the fields will be natural turf, and we'll properly grade it. A part of the estimate is going to be a cost estimate, or pardon me, part of the cost estimate is going to be a survey that will probably ask HRC for a placeholder number for that, to survey either all of the park or some of the park. You know, we'll get a couple of numbers from them so we can at least carry that figure in, because we're going to need that survey to, eventually, we're going to need that survey. If we're, sorry?
For financing?
No. Well, part of the approval, part of the granting processes is that you need a survey. So, and that's going to help us going forward to develop the, if we're so lucky to get that contract, to develop the working drawings for this park. You need those details in order to set to develop the construction documents. This is the existing rail trail and the existing bridge here. That will remain, and we will build off of that and to develop pathway systems into the park as part of Phase 1. Also part of Phase 1 accessibility. The DNR requires accessibility to all fields. So we will have a few more pathways in here, but right now what we're just showing is that there will be a development of a trail system and walking areas adjacent to parking surfaces, which create the accessible routes that they're called, and then those accessible routes will then provide a direct access to the fields for all patrons.
Gravel?
Sorry?
Are those gravel?
They can be crushed stone, but we have to be careful there. The DNR, one of the parks I did a few years back, really required that they be asphalt because of the inclement weather and what have you, and sometimes the gravel gets a little mushy and impassable, if you will. Questions? I'll try to help.
Yeah, actually, first off, I don't see anything accounting for lacrosse. Which field is that?
These two fields here are lacrosse
Okay.
slash
So
football.
Okay,
Yeah.
and soccer.
Could be soccer too. Again, we're not getting into scheduling right now. We're just trying to understand what their needs are and trying to accommodate all the groups in however many phases we have. But Phase 1, certainly everybody has a piece of the action.
Well, I don't know how the Little League versions of football and soccer are, but in high school, the girls or women's lacrosse is, I don't know, there's some scheduling, like one's in the spring, one's in the fall or something like that. And so I don't know if that had been any
It has been, yeah.
any part of the consideration.
It
Okay.
has, yeah.
good.
We've accommodated both boys and girls lacrosse, men and women's lacrosse.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and football.
Okay, the trails themselves, so how far off do you imagine, I'm assuming they're going to start being in Phase 2?
Well, we'll touch in the edges of some of the Phase 1 trail systems, and throughout the buildable area or the built area to provide access. Certainly, from a granting standpoint, particularly when you're talking about land, water, and trust, and you're talking to the DNR and federal fundings, they're going to require accessibility, and they're going to require something other than athletic fields.
Yeah.
So
We had also had that conversation about the natural trails as well, as instead of these really improved versions, the ones where you're just kind of cutting through a beat-down path of foot
and you can do that. I believe you're allowed 20%
Okay.
of the overall trail system can be designed for people with maybe no physical limitations.
Well, that's a strong amount. I mean, that's a lot of trail. So, and the only other thing that I was wondering about was the wetlands that exist. Is that the part that's on the north side of the
Wetlands
baseball
are
field?
predominantly right in here.
No, there's wetlands all along the bike path on that eastern border.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, certainly there's some in here. But most of the areas in here, and what we're going to because of all the fertilizing and runoff that these fields will generate, we want to use native vegetation as a buffer. We'll call it a vegetated buffer, so it's a filtering mechanism before it gets into the water bodies. And we've done that successfully in Oakland Township.
Well, I'm just, is that accounted for in here, the wetlands that are existing, or is it a land balance trade-off kind of?
There is a
thing?
land balance trade-off.
All
Most
right.
of the wetlands, from what I've seen on a map that I have, again, it's not, to me, it's anything detail, are really delineating this area to the
Oh, there's
west.
substantially more over there, but there's a large amount along that bike path.
There surely is,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know exactly what the limits are, but that'll be part of the survey that will discover that for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions for you as well. I know it's in the budget, but I just was curious, was there any investigation into grants that might be available for things that are mandated by the state, such as gravel, like you said earlier, for the pathways? Is that an option? Is that something that was looked into?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So are there any grants going toward this?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think
Okay.
what's going to happen is if we're granted the approval of this document, we'll spend the next month or so developing the cost estimate. So it's our hope in early fall that we will have a number that we will then go forward with fundraising. And then the grant season, Amy, usually is like next spring, April, May, March and April.
That's what we would be looking at. At that time, we would take phase one and try to determine what grants could be applied for to cover different parts of it.
Perfect. My second question for you, which I'm pretty sure you already touched on, but I think I may have missed it, was if this is approved, which I'm sure it will be, I think we're all excited about this, how long would it take for phase one to begin, and how long would it take for it to be completed?
Good question. I think the easiest answer would be, and all predicated on how much money we're able to generate, how much donations or sponsorships and what have you. That money will develop a part of, if not all of, the match. Generally you go for grants, you got a 50-50 match. But a lot of these different groups, Land and Water, for instance, they have a maximum. So we're going to apply for multiple grants in hopes of getting, all of phase one funded. Phase one may be two phases, depending upon how much money we get.
Understandable, absolutely. Thank you.
John, so would the goal be to, and it's really hard, I know, because you have to get fundraising, but at the end date, would the goal be to break ground, let's say, before 2018, or?
Generally, when you
too
go for
aggressive?
grants, it's going to be in the spring of 17.
Okay.
We generally don't hear back until the fall of 17.
Okay.
So then we have to generate working drawings, in order to bid. The best time to bid is the winter, because you're going to get hungry competition, you're going to get a better price. So if we can get drawings out for bid in phase one by, say, February, with, breaking ground in probably late spring, that construction will go all the way through the fall and probably into the following spring of 19.
Okay, so late 18, early 19.
I would say approximately. Not really knowing exactly when we go out for bid.
Right, and I understood that this is all
A
fluid.
lot of variables.
Now, I do have another question, and, well, first of all, I want to say this is wonderful. I mean, I've
Thank you.
spoken to so many.
Well, it's a work
parents
of the
and-
committee and the commission, really, honestly. We just draw.
Yeah, and I think, it's worth saying also that I've seen that Lyon Township, they also want to develop some fields as well. It's the 64 acres, where is that, off of Milford Road? So if they're moving on that project and we're moving on this, the whole area is really going to be.
There'll be some energy.
Yeah,
It'll be cool.
well needed. So, but my question specifically is just regarding the lights. And can you point on the map? And I just want to, because I heard some concerns from residents with them living in the area about lights, and I wanted to see if that's going to be a factor, because we're going to start seeing those people here if that's going to be
Well,
come
I don't think, first of all, the only fields that we've talked about lighting are these right now.
But those are the ones abutting the people that would
They
squawk.
are. But I can tell you, Musco Sports Lighting is an outfit that have these cutoff shields. I mean, 10 feet back of that fixture, it's dark.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
So, and they're probably 60 feet in the air.
Okay.
And there'll be 5 or 6 of them per field.
And I imagine after they're not going to be playing until midnight anyway.
Oh, no.
So, it's not.
No. And it's going to be, a switch on, switch off thing. It's not going to be on a timer where, it's going to go on for days after, or for hours after the games are completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think That's all I have, so good job, thank you.
Thank you.
Has there been a discussion amongst groups about funding as far as, I know a lot of the groups are raising money and have money now and want to get this project going, but has there been a discussion among the groups? I mean, is it going to be equal contribution from each group, or is it going to be more like each group's going to be responsible for the fields that they're developing? For instance, lacrosse and football would be more on the fields
I
toward
think
the west.
Initially, I don't think it's going to be equal across the board by any means. The cost analysis that we're looking to get done will help us detail out, shared use fields between lacrosse and football. We haven't discussed the specifics yet. We're going to be setting up a fundraising committee with representatives from each organization and from the public, if anybody wants to help out. So we'll discuss that if we want to tackle out and appoint, this is what those fields will cost. Now, these groups, that's your target fundraising amount.
Right.
That's an option for us. I think that'll be more sellable to the groups, definitely, but there's still going to be obviously big expenses like utilities and everything else that'd have to be shared expense between
Right.
everybody.
And just to follow, has there been any discussion, I know the city has a matching fund that we use for the junior league. I mean, would the groups be coming as a whole, saying we've raised X amount, therefore we would like to apply for the city's matching grant?
That's definitely something to be discussed.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I don't know how far
Yeah,
that's.
right now, the one appointed city contact hasn't been able to be at the meetings for the last couple months. So we're hoping to get somebody involved on that end because they are supposed to be spearheading the issue to find out what needs to happen between communication from our committee and city council or city management to see what resources. We were also trying to find out, I believe the city had access to a grant database that was approved a couple months ago. We definitely want to talk to somebody about getting involved with that too in the next couple of months to research some possibilities.
There's not going to be any favoritism, that's for sure. I mean, we want this to be holistic and for the betterment of the community. And we've really, I think, beat that, home. And I think all the groups really understand that and really embrace that. And so I'm looking forward to, this next effort because, it's not only the initial construction, but it's also operation and maintenance.
Right.
We want to help out the city and we certainly want the groups to come to the table to play and to participate in kind, if you will.
Well, that junior league model really is what we were kind of hoping would lead this whole discussion. So are they likely to end up being like Friends of the Panthers sponsor this field or something of that nature?
We're going to shoot higher than that. We're going to ITC. We're going to those guys.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Get General Electric a call.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, and we're all ears. If you have other people that we need to knock on their doors, please let us know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have two comments. The first one is I received some emails from some individuals, actually some of them actually live in my subdivision, that are very, very concerned about the trails and concerned about wildlife. So I know that, for Park and Recs, I know this is a huge thing. I'm supporting this, but I just want to let you know that there's a lot of shared interest in this. And some of those individuals, don't play soccer. They're not going to be playing field hockey. They have other recreational needs and interests other than, a very active kind of recreational role. So they are very, very concerned that there is a sincere effort in terms of preserving the trails and for wildlife that is back in there too.
You bet.
It's not just the wetlands that's back there, it's the wildlife that goes with it.
Right.
So hopefully we'll stay on top of that. The next one is more of a city question, and I recall in the fall when we all agreed on it that we would allocate about $10,000 toward this. I think you were here at the meeting. Did that allocation come out of the 2015-2016 budget? Because today I looked in the 2016-2017 budget. This is more of a city question. And I could not find where this expenditure was noted. So I don't know if it didn't get carried over into the 2016-2017 budget. Where is this money now coming from?
I know not all of that 10,000 has been spent yet. in the last fiscal year, only a portion of it was. Once this gets the blessing of city council, the rest of that money will be used towards the phase one cost analysis.
Yeah, but it's coming out of the 2016, 2017 budget.
Yes, I understand
Okay, and
that,
I'm
yeah.
saying, I don't see where that allocation is in the budget. So for some reason, it didn't get carried over. So does this now mean that we're going to have a budget amendment allocating the funds in order to make sure you get paid? That's, it doesn't have to be answered tonight. I am noting it for the, just, maybe somebody could research it.
That's a city question.
It's a very important question.
Okay, well, it is.
I just don't know why it wasn't carried over. I mean, I looked and I didn't see it. And it's possible that I misread, because there were a lot of changes in the budget, but I did not see where this carried over into the Park and Recs. And I did specifically pull 2016 and 2017 numbers, so.
Thank you.
Well, I'll make the motion then to approve the final layout design for Volunteer Park and to authorize the expenditure of $3,872.86 for Phase 1 cost analysis by Russell Design.
Strongly second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good
Thank you
work.
very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Business, the required budget amendments.
Mr. Mayor, council had requested that this item be placed on the agenda. No documents attached. Council would be at liberty to pass a motion or not pass a motion.
Harvey?
I've been on this topic for some time, so I'm going to make the motion to direct the city manager to submit budget amendments for city council consideration on a quarterly basis for significant changes in operating revenue or expenses and immediately following major unbudgeted expenditures.
I'll support.
I added one word to the suggested, and that's revenue.
Discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in the motion, if I could, to direct the city manager or those acting on his or her behalf. So if, I'm glad I brought this up because it was very relevant tonight.
Are you moving to amend the motion?
I move to amend the motion to include the language to direct the city manager or those acting on his/her behalf.
Motion to amend?
I'll second the amended motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
I have a question, just a point of clarification. Don't you want to have one person being the person responsible for this? So, I mean, otherwise, you know, for the purposes of this amendment we're making, requiring the budget amendment, we know it's coming from the city manager, be it the interim
Bookkeeper,
city
actually,
manager, but it's coming from the city manager, so we have some accountability as to where it's coming from. That's the only reasoning I have, or the rationale for just having it limited to the city manager. I understand your point, but just for accountability, who's responsible for doing it, I think it has to come from the city manager.
Well, I mean, by the pretext of the discussion, the whole thing is that actions that we've taken need to be accounted for. So it's not going to end up being activity that hasn't been approved. All we're doing is chronologically making a note every quarter of the things that that weren't originally in the budget that have now amended our budget.
Right. Maybe I didn't make my point clear. The point I'm trying to make is it's the city manager's responsibility to make the budget amendments. So if I'm just saying down the road, if the budget God, what time is it? Budget amendments have not been made, the person responsible for not making those would be just limited to the city manager.
I'm more interested in the activity being
I understand,
conducted
but
than
I'm
I
going-
am about
Right.
assigning responsibility to it, so.
Harvey.
I would be willing to accept a friendly amendment to direct the city manager's office to submit. Does that work for you, Maggie?
Sure. Because, you know, the city manager, tonight, you know, may not be here, so.
I'll
okay.
amend my original motion. Actually,
Okay.
there's a motion to amend on the floor.
So I'll withdraw my motion to amend.
All right, then I will amend my motion to direct the city manager's office to submit budget amendments for city council consideration on a quarterly basis for significant changes in operating revenues/expenses and immediately following major unbudgeted expenditures.
All support. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3 on the agenda, auction of retired patrol vehicles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 3 retired patrol vehicles, a 2008 and 2 2010 Crown Victorias. They're pictured, there are pictures attached to the agenda note. You should note that the graphics have in fact been removed from all of the vehicles. These pictures were taken before the graphics were taken off. The vehicles are in various states of disrepair. I believe 2 out of the 3 don't even run. But we are requesting council's authorization to put these on the Michigan Intergovernmental Trading Network with minimum bids of $100. There's a possibility that one of the vehicles may sell for over $500, which would require council's approval to dispose of it. That's why it's an agenda item. So we're requesting that council pass the suggested motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sale by auction of the retired police department vehicles as listed above.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bob, consider purchases of the street sweeper.
Thank you, Mayor. In this year's fiscal year budget of 2016-17, the department and myself have worked diligently at searching out a new street sweeper for the city. The existing one we have is a 2002 Schwarz. That's who makes the product. And when we bought it in 2004, it was a used unit, okay? So the unit is now going on 15 years old, and it works not that well at best, okay? Yet we have this piece of equipment on the streets 3 to 5 days a week, okay? So we felt this was something we wanted to work hard and try to find a new piece of equipment for the city. So after looking at numerous products and bringing some in, test driving them and testing them out, myself and the department all agreed that probably our very best unit to talk about was this unit right here, the Pelican made by Elgin. This unit's been on the world of street sweeping for about 75 years, okay? When I was a kid in Detroit, I used to watch this thing go up and down the street. Not that exact one, but something similar, okay? So with that said, we have met with Pelican, and one of the reasons why we like this unit, it is far more simpler put together than a lot of the units you see driving up and down the highway going to different locations to work. Far less moving parts, much more small, compact, and it would fit our needs wonderfully, okay? So after meeting with the people from Pelican, we worked on a deal which was very similar to when we purchased the last front-end loader in the city. We did that over a 4-year purchase plan. This one here would be based on 5 years with no payment this fiscal year, the current year we're in, but we could take delivery on this as soon as, within a week or two, okay? And going forward, it would be 5 equal payments of $43,042, and that is set at an interest rate of 2.91%. And so the city would be committed to making that payment each year going forward out of the DPW budget of $43,042, and that payment would be due at or around August 15th of each year. With that said, I think it's a wonderful unit. It has all of the bells and whistles that we require. And with that said, I felt pretty good about it. Tim brought a few concerns to the table tonight to me, so maybe I should let Tim speak to that.
Mr. Mayor? In looking at this, there is a proposed lease agreement and several attachments. I've not had a chance to, these are blank sample type forms. I haven't seen the filled in. There are some provisions in the lease that I would like to contact the financing, I guess it's TCF Equipment Finance, and find out particularly the indemnity arrangement. In looking at this issue today prior to the meeting, there are some legal concerns about the city agreeing to an indemnity provision in a contract like this or a lease. I would suggest, I'd like to provide an outline of the terms of this to council and take an opportunity to talk with Bob, find out what options we have with respect to modifying some of the boilerplate language that appears to be in this lease and the attachments, and bring this back to council at a different meeting.
Could I ask that you try to do it with the reflection of the front-end loader's language, the agreement that we had taken part in that? If they're really comparable, then, I mean, there's really no threat there, so.
That was through John Deere, who we did that through.
Right, and, I mean, the points that he brought out, I think they give me a little pause, but I wanted to find out if they're in that Deere contract, then maybe it's just sort of concern over nothing.
My concern is less about the structure of the deal, the amounts, and just more about the legalities of some of the provisions, and it's really just a lack of comfort at this point, not having been included earlier. But I don't, I just don't know enough at this point to know if this is a huge deal or not.
Well, you can get it done in 2 weeks, though, right?
I would hope so, yes.
Yeah, so.
And I would have brought it to Tim's attention if I felt I need to do that. I wasn't aware of that. My apologies for that.
Further discussion? Bob, I do want to tell you that, who put together the explanation of the topic? Did you? You know, I think this is a real model for presenting things to city council. This is perfect. Starting with the fiscal, you tell us exactly that this was budgeted in the 2016-17. I went to the budget, I found it, and I just wanted to say thank you for documenting this from a budget standpoint. I mean, I'm going to be kind of a stickler on it, so this is a nice model to use as people present items to the city to let us know that it was budgeted. Then we can go to our budget, take a look at it, know that there's no amendments. So now I know we don't need to make any amendments on this. Nice job.
I appreciate that. And if you remember, we did discuss this at our budget workshop. We did.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess that's one reason why I never took it to Tim, thinking, okay, it's there, this is, all works out, and
Well,
nothing more than that.
Yeah, my experience with commercial leases is that probably very little will be permitted to be changed.
That's my concern. I'd like to.
Don't step on the deal. Don't ruin the deal.
I'd like to get oriented on it.
I know.
I'll make the motion then that we postpone the purchase of the Pelican Street sweeper to our next scheduled meeting.
Second.
I will get Tim in touch with the gentleman from Pelican, and we'll get this done, because I told him I'd be talking to him in the morning.
Okay.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Bob. Establish pay rates for non-union employees and department heads.
Mr. Mayor, normally that determination would be made by the city manager based upon the approved budget. In the absence of the city manager, I'm providing council actually three options: a 2% raise, a 3% raise, or in council's discretion, of course, there's always the possibility of no raise. This would apply to non-union employees as well as department heads. To the best of my knowledge, the raises were budgeted at 2%. If you look at the second page of the page behind the agenda note, you'll see what the cost is for a 2% raise or a 3% raise for the various categories. And the other thing of note is that council recently approved a 3% raise for the Police Officers Association of Michigan bargaining unit, and a 2% raise will go into effect for the operating engineers, which is the secretarial clerical bargaining unit. But there's also added to that a one-time longevity payment of $1,000, which is in excess of 1%. So in effect, they also are getting 3%. So it would be in council's discretion whether to stick with the budgeted 2% or award the non-union employees and department heads the 3% to be consistent with the clerical union and the police officers union.
I don't recall what the raises were last year, do you?
I don't recall last year, no.
That would have been a nice thing to have in here.
Yeah, we did give a raise last year, didn't we? Yeah. I would like to know what the raises were last year, because I cannot, for the life
No,
of me,
me either,
remember.
right. Actually, I'd like to have the last 3 years.
Yeah, just I want
of
to
a
see what we.
reflection, right, yeah.
I mean, I'm not against this. I would like to know what we gave last year, so that
Because we know
can-
what the contracts were, we
Right.
just simply don't know what these annual bumps were.
Right. That's my concern right now.
If you'd like me to speak to some of this. Water DPW is getting 1.5% this year, okay? I believe non-union people last year, I'm almost positive on this, was 2%. And if I'm not mistaken, that was given, I'm getting possibly mixed up, but I know Rod, you remember, gave everybody a 2% when he first stepped in as the interim. And that was the first pay raise in approximately 4 years.
Yeah.
The city that, to the employees of the city.
Right, but
That
then,
1.5% though is the last year of that contract, right? For DPW?
This is their last year.
Yeah, the 1.5%,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then we
That's the last
also,
of the 3 years, yeah.
right, and then we give a bump in the longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not.
That was citywide though.
Right,
so,
citywide. Pardon?
No, I was gonna say, I think we should get the actual numbers instead of just.
Right, I mean, okay,
2 weeks isn't gonna end up killing this, so.
right. Then I'll make the motion that we postpone the pay raise, the proposed
five.
pay rates, yeah, for number 5, for non-union employees and department heads into our next scheduled meeting, so we can get the requested information.
That's the last
To
3
clarify,
years, the last
council would
3
like
years.
the last 3 years
3 years, yes, please.
for non-union and department
Non-union.
heads.
Right, and what the increase was in the longevity pay citywide? Does that apply to both
Yes,
non-union and union employees? Longevity pay?
that was citywide, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, if we could have that information too.
Okay, I'll obtain that.
Thanks.
It's a,
And that's not meant to be a comment of, whether you're worthy. We simply need to know where we,
right.
to base this on more specific
That's not a
information.
problem. We'll get
Yeah.
the additional data and bring it back to the
Okay.
next meeting.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Consider approval of chief police contract.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I don't have a whole lot to add other than what's in the explanation of topic. However, I would address the issue of succession planning because that seems to be an item of interest to council of late. As far as succession planning goes, council should keep in mind that the awarding of a police chief contract would apply not only to the current police chief, but it also would impact any potential police chief. And where that becomes significant and relevant to the succession planning that I have done is that if the lieutenant, the current lieutenant in the police department were to be considered for the police chief job, he would have a very serious decision to make, and that would be whether or not he would be willing to step out of the union contracts and the protection that the union offers to step into what is currently a totally at-will, no-contract position. So for the benefit of the current police chief, as far as job security and stress reduction, and for the benefit of any future police chiefs, I am asking council to approve a contract for the police chief. I know that the city attorney has some issues with the proposed contract, and certainly that's a draft and would be open for further discussion or amendment.
I know that I have some concerns about that contract as well for the very same reasons. And I say that with the caveat that as an interim, you won't be working in a vacuum. I mean, if you came back, if the city manager came back and there was some reaction of a negative reaction as a result of your interim duty, that wouldn't end up going unnoticed by council. So, I think that there's some protection in the path as a result of, it'd have to be very, very clearly justified kind of behavior. But I don't like the idea of taking the discretion away from the city manager. So that's my only concern.
John.
Joe.
So, Chief Collins, you've always been very willing and able to help out, especially step into this role when it's necessary, and we all appreciate that. And the situation we're in with the city manager, I mean, it's nobody's, there's not really much I can say. If she's on leave or disability, it's kind of in the hands of HIPAA privacy, and we're here today and we are where we are. So with that being said, you're stepping in and you're willing, and you've made it very clear that you're willing to help, and I think you should be protected. I'm reading through this contract, and it's not long. It's 4 pages. It's not very in-depth. And if we're asking you to do this very serious role, I think we should be respectful of what your concerns are, and you're asking for this to be passed. I don't see any issues personally, so I'm in support of this.
I have some issues because it applies to not only the police chief. In essence, every department head then could have a contract with the city. Therefore, you would have a city manager overseeing a bunch of department heads with no authority over the department heads. This is not just limited to the police chief, and that's something that I think we need to all understand. We would have contracts that would be with every individual, and we could potentially have contracts with everybody. Clerk, Bob, fire chief, everybody
We would
be
have-
requesting a contract. And then it would kind of, in my opinion, you'd have a city manager that would have no authority over any of the department heads.
Well, limited authority, yeah.
Well, limited, but even if you look at how the contract's written right now, I'm questioning our authority as far as what we can do. There's a contract. So
Well,
if
city
we,
manager is the one that ends up negotiating and determining who they want for these department heads. So
Right.
it should really be their responsibility to have oversight on whoever's in those roles.
And-
so they do it with, commensurate approval by us, but, I can't feature anyone deciding to have a department head that city council wouldn't end up having a comfortable feeling with, but,
but it totally changes the at-will
yeah, it does.
employment relationship that these individuals have with the city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd go from at-will to breach of contract.
Right.
And that, there's only one way that would be decided, and that'd be in court.
Mm-hmm.
So my concern is you are totally changing, and I'm not even clear if this violates our charter, but you are totally changing the employment relationship of potentially all the department heads with the city of South Lyon if you go to this contract, this contract, because it's not going to be limited. What authority are we going to have to say no to another department head? Precedent would have been set, and that's my concern. I mean, I understand why, but I would hope that even though you have an at-will relationship where the city manager, in theory, can hire and fire, I believe this council in the past has asserted its preference on not only police chiefs, but on other hirers, and I think that would still be maintained without a contract.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, council has to approve this contract, and going forward, if any other department head wanted such contract, we'd have to approve it. Not every department head is in a position as Chief Collins where he's been named as the successor for the city manager. So to say that we're going to have to give this or potentially give this to every department head, I don't buy that, because we have the decision. We would have to vote on it. We'd have to approve it. And again, not every department head is sitting where he's sitting and stepping up to the plate like he's doing. I mean, it's only right in my opinion.
Bob Martin was city manager for 2 weeks.
And I'd like to say I did an outstanding job.
Oh. But no, that's my whole point. Mr. Martin was city manager for 2 weeks. Who's to say he can't, who's going to determine who's going to get the contract and not?
City
Us?
council. Well,
Okay. No,
and that's why we're talking about it now, and,
sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, one of the big stumbling blocks appears to be the question of just cause or at will. And if that's the major or only stumbling block, certainly I would have no issue in changing it back or changing it to an at-will clause.
Harvey.
Well, I understand, Chief, why you feel you need some protection. I fully understand that. But this contract is much more comprehensive than what I envisioned when you first talked about that. And I guess I don't know who you negotiated that contract or potential contract with. Did you negotiate it with?
I presented it to the mayor and the city attorney, but to be very upfront about it, the city attorney did not approve of it as to form or content.
Tim, can you speak to that?
I guess I just have a problem with that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Can you speak to that?
I think there's a couple of, to me, I look at this as a two-step issue. I think the first question the council has to answer is whether this conceptually is do you want to be pursuing a contract, and a for-cause contract with the police chief? And to me, there's been some confusion about the reason for the contract. And initially, I thought this was a request for a contract as acting city manager. When I recognized it's a contract for his position as police chief, it sets a precedent. I think it would set a precedent that every future police chief and all the other department heads are going to be looking at it saying, well, there's a for-cause contract that I should be able to say, I have some comparability to that, and I could make that request. Now, I think Councilman Rizzi's correct. You control that, and you would have to approve those. But the question is, how do you distinguish, and on what basis do you say this department head gets one and this one doesn't? And I just don't understand. I'm not clear on why the police chief believes that he needs protection at this point, and why anything I don't think it has anything to do with acting city manager, personally. But that's just, I think it's a road that once you go down it, you will have a very difficult time coming backward. And I don't know that you are ready to do that. Now, this may match up more accurately with the private sector, where you have a contract. If there's a termination, there's a severance payout, which is essentially how this could be resolved. That may be the attempt here. I have not looked at police chief contracts. I don't know if we've done a survey of surrounding communities or even in Southeast Michigan. And secondarily, there are some other provisions content-wise as to this contract that are troubling. There's a severance provision. I don't know that there's been no negotiation that I'm aware of as to the term of the severance, the amount of months. There's a spousal issue here. I don't know if that is available under current policies for the city. There's a number of things. I know that Chief Collins has tried to present this as a reflection of what he believes his benefits currently are as the chief. But there are some things that I think would have to be followed through and have specific negotiation on if council were to go down this pathway.
Mr. Mayor? Just quickly, I wanted to ask you, what if this was just a contract for a city manager position, and we took out the aspect of it being for the police chief contract, and we don't go down that rabbit hole, and chief goes back and has a contract made for his time during being intern city manager? Is that something that's more what you're looking for? Because it seems like there's an initial miscommunication here.
I think the at-will versus for-cause is a significant change.
Okay.
Your city manager's contract currently is an at-will contract, but there is a severance provision that's triggered under certain circumstances.
Okay.
I think from my position, I don't think this contract has anything to do with the chief acting as acting city manager. It's a contract that would survive his tenure as acting city manager and would provide him with a changed circumstance from before. It would be a change in his relationship with the city as far as his employment is concerned.
Thank you.
I had conversation with Tim, our attorney, in Lloyd lengthily over this, and it was, quite frankly, a little confusing on both sides. I mean, I understand your direction and your wisdom as lawyer, and I understand Lloyd's comments to a certain point as well, but it is a little bit confusing given the circumstances. And that was the reason why we talked about it and wanted to bring it to the table tonight so the council could all have something to say. Because indirectly, all of us are going to have something to say. It's not just one person. And I don't know what to say other than that. It was a very confusing meeting, trying to decipher the topics on both sides and make some clear distinction of why both sides are wanting it to be the way it is. And I'm not a lawyer, so that's where we rely on you, and then, so that's why I wanted to get it to the table here tonight so we could all have a little bit to say about it. Hopefully help understand the situation much better.
What's the deviation between your existing employment contract and what you've got on here, save for the cause aspect?
That seems to be a huge stumbling point, and as I say, if the majority of the other things stayed in there, I'd have no issue at all with taking out the just cause and changing it back to at will.
Okay, could you answer what's the distinction between this contract, say for the cause factor, and what your existing contract is?
I have no existing contract.
That was my point. You've been working without a contract all this time, and suddenly this is a concern. I'm just wondering.
It's a culmination of the last 2 years of the conditions that I've been working under.
So.
Fair. Fair.
As I said at the onset, you're not working in a vacuum. So the notion that there'd be repercussions that would go unanswered seem really extraordinary to me. So I'm not you, obviously, so I don't sit under the same at least assumed threat that you're thinking of, but I'm not particularly concerned about whether or not you're vulnerable. So, I mean, you're looking at a city council that applauds your performance on an annual basis. So, as I said, you're not going to be working in a vacuum.
I do appreciate that comment.
These kind of contracts are not unusual in the private community. Executives have contract agreements all the time. So from a contract standpoint, I'm not really opposed to an employee having a contract, providing that it is amenable to whoever, the employer. Doesn't bother me that there is a change of status from at-will to just cause. Happens all the time, particularly when you're in a position such as the chief. So I'm not as bothered by this. Maybe it needs a little bit of fine-tuning. Bob Martin wants to present a contract, let him. I'm not opposed to giving him a contract. City manager has a contract. I mean, I'm just not bothered by employment contracts. And I'm not bothered by the fact that an employee, for whatever reason, wants to attempt to alter their at-will status and provide a higher scrutiny as to when they'll be terminated. Unfortunately, these kinds of positions, whether it's Bob Martin or the chief or the city manager or whatever, sometimes they're in highly political positions that get charged. And maybe an employee just wants to say, take your politics, I don't care what you do, sit your city council, I don't care, but keep me out of it. That means I want my job. For me, I'm unless there is a particular instance which does not apply in this case, I will never vote to terminate an employee. It just isn't going to happen with me. I'm telegraphing that to city council right now. I don't vote to terminate employees. I think there's other ways to deal with issues. So chief, if you're concerned about something like that, the vote isn't going to come from me. Find no support from me. Same thing with you, Bob. Same thing with Lynn. If you're watching tonight, it's just not my thing. But if an employee feels that they need some additional protection, I don't care.
It's my understanding the motion before us, or the request before us, is to approve this contract as presented. I can't. There is just so much in here that needs to be further discussed. I mean, if you look at this, there is a guaranteed 3% increase in salary every July. Every July. No questions asked. Not on performance or anything. It's guaranteed 3%. So if this is a public contract, every employee will have this. And then every employee in the city will be asking for a 3% guaranteed raise every year. Those are some of the questions I have regarding this contract. I mean, I'm not saying the employees are not entitled to raises, but you have a guaranteed 3% for the next 4 years in this contract. I'm not clear on some other things too. What is really different from what the chief or any department already has available to him or her versus what is in this contract? I mean, I'd like to have this analyzed, saying, okay, do you get this already? That's fine. Yes? Okay. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Do you get this already? I mean, these parts of your employment with the city that you're already entitled to? I don't know. That's why I cannot vote in favor of this contract as presented.
Well, I mean, when you end up putting an annual escalator in there, you're essentially having a preemptive defined benefit to your retirement.
Right.
So,
Mr. Mayor, when I structured the agenda note, I did not put a suggested motion down there, particularly to leave room for council to take the option of directing the city attorney to reconstruct this contract to protect the things that the police chief position already has. And I'm wide open to that. And if it winds up with at will rather than just cause, as long as there's a severance clause still in there, that's good by me.
Mr. Mayor. So, Chief Collins, I already know the answer to this question, but your officers, do they get annual raises?
Yes, they have available to them collective bargaining, and they do.
And they're in unions, obviously. And as in your position, you're not in a union, correct?
No.
Okay. So for me, 3% increase, if your officers are getting it and you oversee them, it's not unrealistic to ask for equivalent of who you're commanding. So for me, that's just a moot point. Also, my thing is I'm in I like to call it the real world, but the private sector. When people of your position, you're an executive, you're leading the city. City manager needs to be viewed as an executive. We need to start changing that mentality and start giving that respect. So as an executive, yeah, it's not uncommon to ask for a contract. And I don't blame you. And if this is what you want, I said it before, I'll say it again. I'll vote for this, and if there's support, I'll make the motion, but sounds like we still need to talk about it a little more.
Harvey?
Well, once again, when a contract is negotiated between two parties within the city, it comes to us with a recommendation of approval. And there's no one currently who can come to before us and recommend approval. So I would suggest that you sit down with Tim and work something out that he can recommend to us for approval. But otherwise, to me, it looks like, and I'm sorry to say this, but this is more comprehensive than what I was led to believe was coming tonight. So I'm very uncomfortable with just with having this presented to us without having been negotiated. So that's my problem with it.
I'm wide open to that.
Being I sat in on a lot of this discussion and just tried to interpret what was going on between the two parties about this, because it's confusing. Joe, I understand your stance on a contract, and the same with Maggie, that I don't see a problem in normal circumstances on a contract like this. But that being said, there's an awful lot there that's been brought up at the meeting tonight, Councilman Kramer and Harvey and Glenn, that we'd like to have a little explanation of where things are existing, so we can go through and really line item them, and see what's going on in that contract, make it right. So Tim can be comfortable with the same thing and recommend it back to us, and everybody will have a much better feeling how this contract's going to work. And again, that's why I wanted to be here, because it's something we all have to discuss. So,
well, personally, I think
personally against it. Just
as a city manager form of government, they're the executive that essentially decides who the department heads will be. So ultimately, the responsibility is theirs to end up deciding who will work for us, and if there's a misgiving with the performance, they're the ones that take the responsibility of changing things. I'm not looking to change that dynamic. I can understand that being uncomfortable, but I think that's in our best interest to maintain, so.
Move to table.
Any other discussion at all?
I'm sorry?
Any other discussion?
I'm all square.
So I'm not really clear as to what's going to come before us. I mean, is there certain sections that, Tim, you're going to ask be removed? I mean, I don't know if necessarily we designated you to be the contract negotiator for this, but.
As to that point, if there's a direction from council that Chief and I negotiate on this particular issue, I would ask that there be a designation of at least one, if not more than one, but less than a quorum of the council that I could refer to address the substantive positions.
Well, I'd like a majority of people deciding that we need to move towards a contract. Not just getting two people to say, have a discussion about forming a contract or negotiating a contract. This is a council decision. I mean, it's come before us, so it should end up being on the approval of a majority.
I was referring more to if there's direction to negotiate. In other words, there's
That's
a
what I'm
decision.
getting at. Even that
And the
part.
terms.
Whether a contract negotiation is even appropriate. So.
You know what, Tim, if there's issues, if you sit down with the chief and you just sort of take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle, so I always do when I draft a contract. He says this, they want that. That's it. So just do a simple chart of.
We'll do a term sheet.
A flow chart of what each party wants, and that's it. I make a motion to direct the city attorney to negotiate with the chief of police for what is being called as a police chief contract. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
I'd like a roll call vote.
Kibble?
No.
Didakis?
Yes.
Rizzi?
Yes.
Gallus?
Yes.
Waddell?
Yes.
Kramer?
No.
Kurzweil?
Yes.
Roll call passes. Next item.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have that for the next meeting, hopefully. Consider succession plan resolution.
Mayor and council, you've been provided with an agenda note and a proposed resolution to address the succession issue. This resolution was drafted in the context of the language in section 6.1D of the charter. Under that provision, the city manager has the authority to designate an administrative officer employee as an acting city manager if they're going to be away or unable to perform the duties. The interesting part about that provision, it doesn't provide any manner in which the notice or the timing of the notice. So I do have some concerns that I think there's a gap in that, in the event that the city manager has not made such a designation, that there is no clear succession as to the authority of the city manager. And that's what this resolution attempts to address, and it's set up to provide basically a multiple level. If the next person at the top of the list is not available, it would go to the next person. I left those blank to allow council to fill those in. Circling back to the one issue as to the timing and the form of designation, I think the city manager could potentially, and I haven't explored the legality of this, but the city manager could make a standing designation. If I'm ever out of town or unable to make these decisions, these are the people that would be the next in line. That has not been the practice of the city, is my understanding, but I think that could be made. One of the concerns you would have, I think, as a city, and I've recognized, is if the city manager is unable to perform the duties, there's at least an argument that they would also not be in a position to make that designation. So there may be an issue about whether they're away and available and could make that designation after the fact, which would then be subject to council approval and consent, versus being unable to make it, which requires a determination that they're actually unable to make it and perform the duties.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of nuance to this, but I wanted to be fairly straightforward and address the gap that I see in the charter. If there is no specific designation by the city manager, this resolution would fill in that line of succession.
Barbie.
Thank you. The problem that I have with filling in the blanks is that once they're filled in, they're written in stone.
Right.
And, let's say down the road someday, we have police chief first and DPW director second, and I don't know who third, but we're in a situation where the chief has retired, we've got a brand-new police chief in here, doesn't have the concepts of how the city's run, but that new person gets thrust into the job of interim city manager. I would prefer, I think, that the city manager set the line of succession, and as an administrative order, rather than as a resolution from council, and then it's much more changeable without having to go through changing a whole resolution. I suspect if it came to the point where a city manager was incapacitated and on an emergency basis, we could have a meeting within a day and delegate the city manager, and we could get by for a day if we had to. But I think I would rather leave that to a standing administrative order that can easily be changed. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, isn't it the 25th Amendment is presidential succession? I think so. So, I mean, why are we going to be locked into something that, as the players change, then we're going through hoops trying to modify the document? I mean, we need to be imposing ourselves on the city manager. You need to be the one that designates the pecking order. And we've just been remiss in that duty, that's all.
Mr. Mayor? I think that is something that, having reviewed this issue, that is something that probably ought to be addressed through the city manager. The alternative would be to, if you could potentially put this on your agenda each year to evaluate the succession line each year, and based on personnel changes or any other circumstances that might have changed.
Maggie?
Yeah, I was a little bit confused by the drafting of this. Because when I went to the charter, it gives either city council or the city manager the ability to appoint an acting manager during the period of a vacancy in the office.
Well, I view a vacancy different than the temporary absence or the inability to perform the duties.
Well,
So if there's a termination or a resignation, that would be a vacancy in the office, and you would appoint an acting city manager. We've typically called them an interim city manager. And in the event that somebody's out of town for 2 weeks on a vacation, that to me is temporary absence as opposed to a vacancy in the position.
I didn't necessarily see it like that. I mean, a vacancy to me is a vacancy. And I think the fact that it says that the city manager, with the consent and approval of the council, gives me the impression that city council also has the authority to to make those appointments.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor? The way I read it is there is, as a temporary absence or related to the performance of the duties, there appears to be a deference to the city manager because they're still in that position, and it's not a termination or a resignation, there's no vacancy, that they have deference, there's some deference given to the city manager to designate who they feel should be the acting. That's the way I read it.
Well, you don't have a city manager now to make those recommendations, so who steps in? It's city council.
I think it has to be.
The same way it was when you made your big tirade about how delinquent we were for not having a secession plan.
Well, it was a good tirade to have. It was a good tirade. You may not agree with it, but...
Matter of view.
Pardon?
Point of view.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different point of view. But it was a good tirade, because it's bringing about a discussion about a weakness in...
That the charter already explains it. Yeah.
Well, not really, because obviously we have some discussion here as to a difference of interpretation. However, if council is going to accept that it's the city manager and the city manager only that makes these appointments, you don't have a city manager to do the succession plan right now. So you probably need to put this off until she comes back and you sit down and you talk to her and you get things in place. I mean, is that kind of your opinion?
No.
That's paragraph 2.
Mr. Mayor, if council were to choose to pursue the standing administrative order, yes, I think you could possibly ask the acting city manager or you could pass this resolution expecting to repeal it when you have more information about your city manager's return. I mean, that would provide you with a clear line of succession. There's a number of ways you could go after this, I think.
Yeah, and I think that these succession lines are not meant to be carved in stone. They clearly are not. So I think anybody who thinks that this is something that we have to live by for the next 10 years, that's not how succession planning goes in management. It changes with every shareholder meeting because there's always somebody new running the ship. So this is something that would come up as an administrative review, probably on a yearly basis. You're right, personnel changes. And what it is it just keeps the managerial individuals, the CEOs, the department heads constantly aware that succession planning is kind of an important part of management with respect to this governing body here that takes care of the city. You know, it's not anything to be afraid of. It's a best practices kind of thing.
Mr. Mayor, I really think it's to fill a gap. You know, I think the charter drafted quite some years ago. This may be, a scenario. We've come up with some scenarios that maybe the charter doesn't address in the best way. There are some vagaries about language drafted so long ago. So, I don't know that this is a have-to-do type of thing. I think there's a number of ways to approach it. I think you've been without this type of plan for some time. I don't know that, also as Councilman Waddell says, 18 hours notice, you can have a special council meeting.
My issue is the triggering event. I mean, unable to perform their duties. Who decides that?
Well, I think that's the vagueness of the language that's in the charter.
That's my issue. Is it to the point is a triggering event the first day of in this case, disability? I mean, it's too vague. I mean, that's the issue I'm having with this. It's unable to do the duties. Who decides that?
I don't have a good answer for you. I think that's...
I mean, who makes the determination?
Not showing up to be at work is probably a pretty good trigger.
Well, no, I'm saying it's open to too much interpretation, what it means to be unable to do the duties. I would rather have more of a specific triggering event, i.e., if the person goes on disability, it'd be the first date of disability. Somehow, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but unable to do his or her duties.
I know, but if you take out disability, then if they have a hospital event, then they're not on disability, they're in the hospital.
Well, that's my concern.
I'm looking at the charter, and the charter speaks of a period of a vacancy in the office of city manager. It doesn't talk about disability or anything. A vacancy, it could be a vacation, it could be a disability, it could be any number of things. And with the approval, council may designate an administrative officer to act as, if he is temporarily absent from the city or unable to perform the duties of office. I think that pretty well covers it. That's a vacancy, for whatever reason.
Right.
What I'm getting at is we would have to make the determination.
Well,
That's how I'm
historically, though,
reading.
we've allowed a vacationing city manager to be in contact by phone, and that seemed perfectly acceptable. So, I mean, we've used various triggers to determine whether or not that vacancy has taken place. So,
The point I'm trying to make is there's two ways of doing that. Number one, if the city manager is going to be away for a couple weeks, there's a provision that states that the city manager may, with the approval of council, designate a person to do it. The issue,
that's key.
That's key. The second way of doing this is if the city manager fails to do that, then we can do that. No questions asked. But the point I'm trying to make is, it sounds like by our own charter, the way it's worded, we are the ones that, in essence, determine if the person is unable to perform her duties or his duties.
Or if a vacancy.
Or if the vacancy occurs without any prior designation. Okay.
so the onus is on us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Question? Chief, who appointed you when the city manager had her surgery last winter?
Forgive me for a vague answer, because I don't have records in front of me. My recollection is the first time the manager went out, that council appointed me, and the second time the manager went out, that the mayor did it based upon prior council action.
Yes, I can
Just
confirm that.
recollection.
Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that. Yeah, so this is very vivid in my mind. Council voted the first time, like you said. Second time, previous Mayor Wallace, he sent out a memo saying, based off of precedent, I'm appointing Chief Collins as acting city manager, and he signed it. It's about 2 sentences long. That was it.
That's consistent with my
Yep.
recollection.
Absolutely.
So the city manager never made the appointment?
I don't believe so.
That's right. It was always council or the mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, my concern is if the city manager's out, I don't blame the city manager for not appointing an acting city manager, because if they're on disability, we have no plan in place. How are they supposed to make that determination? I mean, so the thing that we have here is if they leave, whoever the city manager is, I'm looking even 5 years, 10 years down the line, then we need to have some guidelines in place, and right now, we don't have any. So I'm leaning towards it should be council, which it's in the charter already, but that is my concern, is
That's
that...
our guideline.
Right.
It's in the charter.
What, the
We can
city?
meet within 18-hour notice to take action, so.
I mean, we're not the first city in which, I'm sure we're not the first city where this has come up. Do we know what occurs in other cities? What the protocol is?
I haven't looked into that particular issue yet.
Okay.
This is really easy what we're being asked to decide. Do we want to just name individuals in their succession order by this resolution, number one, or are we making a determination tonight that in the event that a city manager, interim or temporary, whatever, needs to be decided, the city council is going to do it without the designation already? Meaning that we don't have one individual already appointed. I mean, that's what we're basically deciding. when it comes down to it? Do we want to go with the resolution and we want to name the police chief as the first person, Bob the second person, etc.? Or do we want to just schedule a special meeting and just appoint somebody based on the council's special meeting? That's
Well,
how I'm looking at this tonight.
consider this. We have an acting city manager. The acting city manager can relegate who he thinks the secession list should be while he's in office or in that position. In the event that something changes, we can end up intervening. I mean, we've got a city manager right now.
Right. So
Let him make a designation, and if he ends up coming up missing in the next few days, then we have to intervene. So,
But I think the issue was there was nobody in charge, if I'm not correct. If I'm incorrect, please say something, for 18 hours, or whatever the period of
Right.
time was.
4 days.
That's- Was it 40?
4 days.
4 days, over the weekend.
Right.
So the issue is,
because we all had confidence in the
right,
department
well,
heads, so,
but,
yeah.
but, so do we name 3 individuals right now with this resolution? And then we don't have to worry about it.
Well, what I would prefer is that having that gap is what makes me nervous. And to schedule some sort of a meeting to name the people, at the very minimum, it would be nice to say, because it's not spelled out in the charter exactly when we'd be going forward, to have some sort of language saying that within 18 hours, a special council will be meeting. I'm just throwing out ideas at this point, because that's my concern, is to get council together and say, all right, well, we need to have a special meeting. It may go into 2 or 3 days, and then before you know it, we're still waiting for the next council meeting.
Let me ask a question. Thank you. Let me ask a question then. Yeah, under A, B, and C, do we put a person's name or do we put their position in?
Name.
Yeah.
Name.
It would have to be.
Okay. Just want to make sure we thought of that.
For A, I would just put in Chief Collins. For B, I would put in Bob Martin. And the third one, I'd let it go. And, I mean, put a name in there, get somebody in there. And when Lynn comes back, let's have a conversation with her. And if she wants to rearrange A, B, and C, or delete A, B, and C and put in somebody else, fine. But at least we've got something in place.
Yep.
And give her some.
But then she's going to have to bring it back to council.
Well, so what? She brings it back.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
this is what these are all about. So that way we satisfy, give Lynn an opportunity for input, and we just sort of get this done, get this over with. Everybody knows now that who's going to be who in charge when, blah, blah, blah. So I've got Chief as A, Bob Martin as B. I don't know who you want to put in
Lisa,
as.
she's the next department head.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Who is it?
Lisa.
Lisa D. Okay.
Lisa, don't get any ideas now. Move up the chain.
I make a motion to approve the resolution establishing a line of success for acting city manager in the event the city manager is unable to perform the duties of the position. Namely, the first person listed in the succession plan is Chief Collins, the next person is Robert Martin, and the third person is Lisa Deaton, to stay in effect until the city manager returns to work. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Against?
Aye.
Discussion of the downtown.
I can kick it off. I think what happened tonight is a perfect kickoff for the discussion of the downtown. We lost a crucial event in South Lyon, and it's going to be detrimental. And it's going to be a backlash for for all of us. And I think we need to do some serious damage control and reach out to Kathy Swan to reach out to Pumpkin Fest to see if there's any way to salvage this. I know, Maggie, you tried when she was here, but I think we need to try and salvage the situation because we talked about getting more festivals to South Lyon and get more exposure for South Lyon to better our community, and now we're backtracking. We're going in the complete opposite direction. We're in trouble. We lost the hotel. That's a lot of revenue right there that just we no longer have for at least a little while. Who knows, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 years. And now we lost our biggest festival that generates the most revenue. And I mean, let's face it, that's something that everyone looks forward to. Those are memories that are not going to be made this year. They're going to be made for New Hudson. It's going to be revenue for New Hudson, which is great for them, terrible for us.
Mr. Mayor.
Mike?
Mr. Donahue, will you please do anything you possibly can? Reach out, just keep reaching out and see if there's anything that can be done.
I would absolutely do that, and I would also like to kind of give you my perspective, if you desire, on other ways we could proceed to look at other options.
Gravel. That's the way I look at it. Implore.
I would like to also, at the same time, work with the city clerk and the other ladies in the building to come up with a list. And I think we need to meet with all of the entities, any group that holds any kind of an event. We need to map out and look at our gaps. And obviously we have a major gap right now. But I think we need to look at this holistically over a 12-month period and map everything out, every small-scale, large-scale event by any organization in the city, and then come up with a plan to fill those gaps. And grovel at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I'll join you. I'll go with you. I have no problem.
Well, I think you got to be careful what you say to people. I'm not quite sure why the phone call was made to Kathy Swan, but obviously that is definitely a very, very sore spot with her. I don't understand why, if they're going to Atkinson Park, that they didn't come here and ask to go to McCaddy Park. I think the advantage that Atkinson Park has is that they don't have to deal with the downtown area, that they don't have to deal with the businesses, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not convinced that they're going to meet with success in that venue, because I think that our venue in downtown South Lyon actually presented many advantages to them, namely that many individuals that went to Pumpkin Fest enjoyed going to Lake Street Tavern, going to the hotel at that time, enjoyed a lot of the other businesses, visiting them in the downtown area. They were able to walk around, go to Brown's Root Beer, and so I think that they will not necessarily have the ambiance that they've had in the past. So I don't know if they're looking that far ahead. I think from if I were that organization and hearing the discussion tonight, I think that I would have said, here are our problems, and this is what we're thinking about doing, and we'd like to sit down with South Lyon and talk with you and work out some of these issues. And I just didn't see that desire. And so I'm a little bit disappointed that that particular approach was not taken to solve the problem. Rather, it's just running away from it. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully they'll be back at some point. I don't know if it's going to be as successful as it's been here in South Lyon, but I guess, time will tell. Yes?
I want you to know that in my work with the county, and I've dealt with a lot of city councils that have asked questions similar to those asked by this council, and I think it is, I'm not going to look at any specific comment, but it is a council's job to ask tough questions of groups, and I didn't see anything really out of line based upon my 17 years of experience, plus 8 years prior experience with Rochester, and a council asking questions. I thought you handled that in a direct manner.
I was under the impression that it was a negotiation, well, more of a, I don't want to say a threat, but that we were making them feel like if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then, I mean, we're not going to let you do this either, kind of a thing. So I think they felt a little bit intimidated, a little bit threatened, and they called our bluff, and they went elsewhere. So really, I mean, I don't know if it's just chalked up to a miscommunication or a grave mistake on our end, but either way, we're the ones that are hurting in the end. So I think lessons should be learned. Yeah, be careful what you say. Think about it first.
We sure don't want to be having conversations with people implying that you can gather support for this or for that. So I don't know what
happened.
Well, that's what you said.
But it didn't happen. I mean,
That's what she said.
people
Your
can
word
say
against,
things, but
it's your word against hers. And obviously, she's very upset about it.
The one thing that's evident to me, and it's been this way for a while, and the reason why it came up, and I admit I said some things that night, but I also said some things that were taken out of context, and I never said that the business owners were not wanting the Pumpkin Fest to be here. They said they want the Pumpkin Fest to be here, but they want to be included a lot more than they had been. Those other people that talk, that we know about, Marilyn, doesn't matter because they're never happy. But the other people had questions and they wanted some answers. And there's been a miscommunication all the way across the board for a long time, and that's how these things blow up like this. And I'm not going to back down from some of the statements that I made because I don't feel like what I asked was that out of the ordinary. And there were just very, very simple questions that needed to be answered, and we were good. They chose not to talk to us.
Because they felt threatened.
But I never got a call, never got an email, never got a call, nothing. I agree.
They
But
felt
it's again, it's
I think they felt
It's
threatened.
miscommunication.
I think
It's
they
a total
felt somebody threatened them.
miscommunication line
I
that
think-
we've not done a very good job.
There's a miscommunication because we're not direct on council. I think if we quit beating around the bush and saying, oh, you know, I'm friends with so-and-so, who's friends with so-and-so, and I agree with so-and-so, it's not about that. Be direct, ask the tough questions, play devil's advocate, that's fine. But I think that when we start dabbling in gray areas, that's when we get in trouble.
But it sounds like the questions that Bob is even alluding to were asked, and he didn't feel as though they were out of the question.
It's not just that, though.
irrespective of that, though, I mean, I'm hoping that in the event that we can't end up engaging and talking them into coming back, that they do their event and they decide that next year it would be better to relocate back in the city, so.
Just for going forward in the future, I think if the council has any concerns, and I said this a couple meetings ago, we hired somebody to be our mouthpiece in these concerns. The concerns should be addressed.
To Bob.
Mr. Donahue, and Mr. Donahue should approach any organization or any group wanting to do something with our concerns, as opposed to how it's been going on in the past when phone calls are made or conversations are made with individuals or statements are made, and they get to the point where they don't know which direction they need to go. We need to have a unified voice. We list our questions and concerns. It should go through that man. I'm sorry, because this would have all been avoided if we would have had the opportunity to voice our concerns and not grill them, and especially not grill them when they're not here.
Well, I'm not
Because
I'm not abdicating my responsibilities, what I think my role is here.
We just lost the signature event for South Lyon.
I'm aware of
Apparently,
that.
we did something wrong. Apparently, this city did something wrong. Our signature event is now going to be held in Lyon Township. And you don't feel bad about that?
I wish that weren't the case, but I'm not heartbroken by this. I asked some questions.
Damage control.
I asked some questions that I thought that were reasonable to try to find an answer to.
Right.
So, and I did not ask, or I did not state that I was going to rally other support to end up turning against them.
Why did you make the phone call in the first place?
Yeah, why'd you
To
even call
find
it?
out what, I asked whether or not there was some justification for not allowing that activity to be conducted. What was the rationale that they used to decide not to allow that kind of behavior or that action to take place?
But from an outside perspective, all we have to go off of is the email. And the email stated that if you don't comply with the road blockages, you're going to
I
rally
said that.
everyone.
I said that I would be withdrawing my support for
But
it.
I think the email made it sound like you're going to rally support of council to go with
Well, I
your
can't
vote.
help what
I know.
her
I'm just letting you
interpretation
know
of
that.
was.
I know. I understand your side of it, of course. But I'm just letting you know from the outside perspective, that's what the email came off as.
This is exactly why we hired Mr. Donahue.
My bigger problem with the whole thing is at the time, well, and I might have even mentioned this earlier, but at the time that I found out that they pay a $450 booth fee for those food vendors, had I known that going in, this would have been a moot discussion. At the time that I asked that question, the only thing that I was aware of that they didn't enjoy any of the revenue that was produced as the food was sold, and they gave no explanation of why they wouldn't give permission to someone that actually was a brick and mortar inside the Pumpkin Fest zone to conduct that activity. It just struck me as bizarre. So
I think the bottom line is the people of South Lyon are going to be very upset with this, of course, and they have every right to be. So damage control, and I'll say it again, damage control. What can we salvage? Can we bring in a few events, and maybe some of the events that aren't scheduled yet with New Hudson will take over? Whatever it can be that we can salvage, we need to salvage, because there's going to be so many upset residents, and the backlash will be huge. We thought the food trucks was bad. This is going to be so much worse. And not to mention the fact that it's going to affect all of the committees as well. I know Cultural Arts Commission had a bunch of events planned for Pumpkin Fest that are now going to be, in New Hudson, or just not going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of domino effect from this.
Bob, why don't you put together your thoughts, and let's take a look at this at the next meeting. I also like to propose maybe we can provide an economic incentive to bring Pumpkin Fest back, a one-time incentive, and I think we need to
And an apology.
get that down right away. And Bob Donahue is the person that we should be having our communications through. I mean, I wouldn't think of calling anybody on a committee and asking them questions. She was very upset about that phone call, very upset.
I think that the entire group of people that came here today were angry. If anybody didn't think that they were angry, you're not very perceptive. They were mad as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And they walked out as a group. Now, those are some people that do a lot of good stuff in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Those are folks that put in hours and hours and hours on this committee. And we just frankly pissed them off. And there's no excuse for that. There's no reason to do that to people who are community activists. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that somehow or another we really made those folks angry. And that's not hard to do, or not easy to do. Thank you.
John. Yeah, and along those lines, I just feel like the people on Pumpkin Fest committee, they deserve a big thank you for everything they do. I mean, I know Scott Black and his family, they came out and they just cleaned up the grounds at the police station, stuff like that. I mean, it's just, the list goes on. Kathy Swan, she's also organizing Relay for Life, which is right in our city at Millennium and middle school. So these people have their hands all over the place. So I really want to thank them for what they do. And certainly, hopefully, there's something we can salvage. And Bob, I'll be looking forward to seeing hopefully what you can come up with. Thank you.
Once again, I'm going to suggest that we consider an economic incentive to bring them back.
Along those same lines, I think they deserve an apology as well, if we've offended them. I mean, I know we're supposed to stand by what we say, but I think at the same time, like Councilman Harvey said, we've angered people who are trying to do good for our city. We're backtracking.
But this has been ongoing, I'm sorry. This has been ongoing for the last 3 or 4 years. This isn't just a one-time thing. Every year, they've been getting madder, getting more pushback, I mean, they wanted location changes. I mean, there was requests for location changes. It's not just 1 year. It's not just this year. This has been ongoing to the point where they said, you know what, I had enough. And that was obvious tonight. And that's what has to change about a lot of things with this city. We cannot be in a position where I think the statement was made earlier. This isn't about me. This is about us and the city. It's not each individual going out on a tangent and making calls and making whatever. This is about us as a council trying to embrace organizations and say, please come to South Lyon. And we are not getting that message across. We are not. We fight tooth and nail on every little issue. It's getting to the point where sometimes I just want to walk out of here because I cannot believe how interested we are on the finite details of an organization and what they want to do. We get down to, telling them exactly when, where, how, why, and for how. I mean, it's getting to the point where we are micromanaging so much. Hell, I wouldn't want to do anything in this city. That has to change, and we are not getting that message across. I don't blame them. I really don't. And in fact, I'm surprised they've been here as long as they've been in the downtown area. I really am. I mean, I cannot believe, and believe me, I'm going to see what can be salvaged, and I hope Bob can work a miracle. And if you do, your first round's on me. But the bottom line is this. It has to happen. We cannot give up on this. We cannot let them go. Bob.
If a couple items I'm going to need, I think, from the police and fire chief, the manpower and costs that are incurred by the city, and also some budget information from the Pumpkin Fest. If in fact you want to consider some type of information that would lead to an economic incentive, we're going to need some budget information.
Well, I've been saying this for years. That's why you have a downtown that looks the way it does. I don't know what else to say. That's why you got elected. I just don't know how far you want to sit in the sewer before you realize you got to make a change. Maybe tonight's the night. Maybe there's a couple more falls. I don't know. Economic incentive. I've said it 4 times, 5 times. I'll keep saying it.
Manager's report.
Manager's report.
Lloyd.
Trying to work with Mr. Donahue on incentives already. Yes, my main item is I am requesting council direction on a request that was made of me by Mr. Aventini, our planner. He pointed out that he feels the need for a on-site planning assistant, which turns out to be a very large part of the function that Kelly McIntyre was serving when she was here, even though I believe her title was DDA and Economic Development Director at the time, or coordinator at the time. Mr. Aventini feels like there should be somebody on site to field some of the initial questions and refer information to him. He was seeking my approval to go out and hire another part-time person to replace many of the things that Kelly McIntyre was doing. There's about $20-some thousand that was not taken out of the budget when Kelly McIntyre left the city. However, the flip side of that coin is when Mr. Donahue came aboard, that's a full-time position plus benefits that was not there previously. There is now an administrative assistant part-time to the city manager and the city clerk that was not in the previous budget. I just didn't feel comfortable making the decision to tell Mr. Aventini, yes, go through the process of hiring another part-time individual, because now you've got 3 slots that are going to be coming out of revenues or fund balance, one or the other, forever. So I'm seeking some kind of direction from council because I didn't feel comfortable with the request.
Question? Are there presently employees that can handle this until Lynn gets back? I mean, is there enough staff that could assist? I mean, how many planning commissions?
The direction I have given in the interim, which is somewhat contrary to the direction that was given by the city manager, I gave Lisa direction to use the administrative assistant as necessary for daily functions, and I've given the administrative assistant direction to provide assistance to those seeking interaction with Mr. Aventini and to assist Mr. Aventini. I believe that there is room for that within her 4 hours a day, because most of the work that she was doing for the city manager, I'm doing for myself. I come in early, I stay late, I do what I need to do. So she should be freed up on a temporary basis at least to assist Mr. Aventini and Lisa.
Lisa?
Well, my only issue is that she is only there 4 hours a day, and this is election time, and we're very busy with ballots on a daily basis, on top of other things that I have to work on. But I think Carmen's and Lynn's original intent was to have somebody as that one-stop shop person. Kelly had a background in planning. She had a background, or she picked up on the zoning. I don't know if she had a background in that. But I think the idea was to have someone there so that when somebody comes to the counter, there's somebody there that can answer their questions, other than us trying to get them in contact with Carmen, because it's not always an easy thing to do.
Right.
Between somebody standing at the counter and telling them they have to go call somebody else, because he generally doesn't come into the office very often. So originally, I think that was the intent when her job title was changed. And then we hired Mr. Donahue. But I think that was the intent, was to have somebody there who was trained in planning and zoning, who could answer any questions that anybody had when they come to the counter. And I don't think our present administrative assistant has that job skill set.
Kelly was the community development director, and she did come from a background of planning, so she was intimately aware of the components that were going into Carmen's world in particular. So, you know, someone that's just part of the clerical staff isn't necessarily going to have that background to be very productive in that role. So
She's more than capable of assisting with emails and putting the packet
Right.
together, things like that, because that's what one of our intentions were to begin with.
I don't think that's what Carmen's looking for, though.
Right, we need
So,
somebody who can answer questions that nobody currently in the office can answer.
Does, just a question, have you called Lyon Township to see if they have a part-timer that we could contract with for 60 days or whatever, just to fill in, just put them on?
Dusen, yeah.
Just put on a part-time basis over there in their building, in their planning commission, or Green Oak, just get somebody in here, just don't make a permanent decision, let them know that it's just a part-time, you know, we just need a 60-day, 30-day, whatever. If that was Lynn's intent, then I'd like to give Lynn the option of filling that position when she gets back. But there's got to be somebody around here in the area that can do this on a very, very short-term basis. Yes?
I was present when Carmen asked the question, and it's my understanding that he and Lynn had actually interviewed to fill the planning director position, and he was really asking what's happening, what kind of time frame. I think they had a candidate in mind. I don't know much more than that, but I think it was always the intention to fill that position.
Thank you. Is that candidate still available?
I spoke with Carmen today. He was trying to let this person know that there would be some time before a decision could be made. So apparently the person is still interested and willing to wait a certain, some period of time, knowing that it's a part-time position.
Be good to have some understanding of the economic impact of that job being filled too, though, so.
So what are we saying?
Can you get by the next 2 weeks? Lisa?
Oh, sure. I mean, we always do what we have to do. I was just speaking in the long term for someone to come to the counter and ask a question. Currently, there's nobody there that can.
Well, the primary's not going to be that heavy, you know. You're not, I mean, it's not like it's going to be the general election in November.
No, I understand that. We are issuing a lot of absentee ballots every day.
Okay.
People don't understand that. I think what's happening is a lot of people are assuming there's still something to do with the presidential election on the August, so we're still issuing ballots even though not all of them are coming back because they look at the ballot and they see that there's nothing to do with presidential.
There's no president on it, yeah.
So we're still issuing a lot. We're not getting back as many as November.
I'd like to table this for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And possibly, Chief Tim, if you could get together, find out about this candidate, maybe send out an email.
I'll gather some information through Carmen as well.
I mean, maybe make a temporary interim position or, whatever, until Lynn comes back so she can put the final approval on it.
I'll second the motion to table.
I'm just thinking. There's a motion on the table.
You got a second, yeah, so.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, one more item in manager's report, and that is Mr. Martin would like to address the council regarding the city water system.
Thank you, sir. There was a little concern over the weekend about watering restrictions within the city of South Lyon. We don't have any.
I don't think so.
We run our system in a way that we can maintain water pressure and volume by the movement of water from one location to another. All of us in the department is very educated in the format that we do. And in so doing this, we can supply water up to, as long as we don't breach, about 4.5 to 4.6 million gallons a day. This past week with the heat and the dryness, we approached 2.6 one day. We still have a nice leeway there, but rest assured, we keep a very close eye on it. And if everything keeps working the way we have it figured out, we're in a very good position. Thank you.
I had a couple.
Comments.
No, I had a couple things on the manager's report. I'd like to inquire into the 50/50 sidewalk repair program. It was my understanding that we approved $20,000 into the budget for this to start July 1st. Am I wrong? Did we?
No, we put it in.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Then.
So it's there. How soon? Because I think
And
this,
I'll get a price on what it's gonna cost per flag,
okay,
and we will be able to move on this program. And we'll keep a running total of how many homes we do this with, and so we don't breach the $20,000.
okay. Now, we already know that there is already a citizen that is.
Correct.
How soon will this come into play for?
Contact her in the next day.
Thank you so much.
We should put this word out to the public, okay? Because it'd be wonderful, because there's lots of homes in the city where, you gotta understand, the city repairs people's sidewalk when it is at the fault of the city, meaning a city tree buckling the sidewalk. But if the tree's not involved, there's still a lot of bad sidewalk in the city that the city's not responsible for. But if these folks are willing to kick in 50%, we're more than willing to kick in 50%, and we can start fixing a lot of sidewalks within the city.
Okay.
Okay?
Great. This goes to the fire chief and the chief of police. If I find a sparkler or a firework on my patio deck, and I know who shot off that that firework, is there anything I can do? Can I file a complaint? Can I do anything against this neighbor that is shooting fireworks on my property?
The current ordinance, I believe, does contain a clause about debris from fireworks landing on a neighbor's property. So the police department would be more than happy to respond.
Okay.
See how good of a witness statement we could get, and then present it to the city prosecutor and see if he would be willing to issue a warrant.
There's actually a picture with the firework there. Okay, perfect.
We'll take our chances in court.
Okay. Next, I want to bring to City Council's attention, and I am going to advocate for this, is that the chief is being paid 25% over and above his base salary for service to the city as the acting city manager. And I think that's a great thing. I'm clearly in favor of it, totally support it. But I think you also have to be fair to other department heads who have similarly offered to perform that same service. And clearly, Bob Martin performed that service. Bob is learning about this tonight for the first time. So I don't want anybody to think that he called me or asked me. So I would like to propose that at the next meeting, we put on as an action item that Bob Martin also be treated similarly as the chief, and that he be provided 25% of his base salary for no more than 2 hours per day. That would be 10 hours a week for the time that he spent in June acting as the city manager. Bob didn't ask for it, but I think it's difficult for me to give the chief the 25% for acting, when Bob did it too. So I just want to be fair to both department heads who both have done the same job, and that's all I'm asking. I can't believe it's that much. It's only 20 hours of your time that you spent. Thank you for your service, willing to volunteer, and you didn't ask for the money, so I don't know how council feels about it.
That's fair.
I'm all right with it.
We'll find out in 2 weeks.
So why don't we put that on the agenda and as an action item?
I wanted to comment on that sidewalk program. If you remember, we didn't want to end up having someone be able to enjoy some lion's share of that, the resource, the $20,000, like doing their entire sidewalk kind of a thing. And, so I just to try to do it in a measured way where when they have, if they've got 6 flags that are bad, not doing a 25 flag, across the front of their house, just because they don't want it to be different colors, you know what I mean? So, it's supposed to actually be for failing concrete, not just for replacement for beautification concerns, so.
No, council comments? What, is it council comments? Oh.
I will wait for you when you're done.
Oh, okay. I've said enough tonight, but I do want to just make 2 comments. I had the opportunity to spend some time over the 4th in the state of Wisconsin in the city of Manitowoc and took a tour of the SS Cobia, which was a submarine commissioned during World War II. And the conditions in which those men lived was absolutely unbelievable. The submarine temperature underneath the water was about 90 degrees. In the engine room, it was about 104. At that time, the crew members smoked, so they were in smoky air 24 hours a day. They were breathing in the cigarette smoke in those temperatures. They slept on bunks with no sheets, so the sweat and filth and dirt of the crew member from the night before stayed on those bunks. They were allowed to shower once every 2 weeks, and there were no washing machines on the submarine, so the only way to wash your clothes was to stand in the shower with your clothes on. And if you wanted them dry, you had to go into the engine room. I can't imagine any young man living under those conditions and fighting for freedom. It's just beyond my comprehension how this country was able to bring men to the battlefield and to live the way they did. So my comments tonight, freedom of speech. I will advocate in the memory of those crew members that served on the SS Cobia. More importantly, I will always advocate for freedom of speech for those crew members that never made it back from World War II that were in a submarine. So tonight, my closing comments are clearly in memory and in deep appreciation of all crew members that have served in World War II, particularly those members of the SS Cobia. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Have a good week.
I have nothing.
I'd like to offer our apologies to our staffers who've had to work an extra half a day today. Other than that, I have no more.
So just a few things. I wanted to just talk about Ms. Khaleesi, who spoke earlier today. And along those lines, that just reminded me that, I as well, I don't think there should be any changes in any rules or in anything. Public comment shouldn't be limited, and I think that we should be not trying to restrict any free speech. Excuse me. Also wanted to talk about the next weekend at the Witch's Hat Slows Barbecue is going to be here. So that's a lot of talk around town that people are looking forward to that. So if you're going to be attending want to see one of the food trucks, head out next weekend. That's going to be this coming weekend. I apologize. That'll be a good one to attend. Also, I visited Ambrosia Vey downtown. It's a child's store for little girls, and I went, and my wife went, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. For all the mothers out there and grandmothers and just people who want to buy gifts for girls, I'd highly recommend. That store is right above the yoga studio, Divine Yoga, and it's next to Jan's Skin Spa upstairs. Also, my final comment is just regarding the secession planning. I'm glad that we're talking about this. I think it's important. I was contacted by a resident, and I'm not going to name who, but they informed me that they walked into City Hall and they wanted to speak to city manager, but then they were informed that city manager wasn't available, even though obviously we have the police chief. So I just want to say that it's really important that we have that communicated to our residents, so they have a clear line of communication, because it's clear to us, obviously, who's in charge. So with that, I just want to say good night as well, and I hope everybody has a nice week. Thank you.
I'm going to keep mine very brief. I just wanted to make a comment about the new city website. It's refreshing to have something that's not straight out of the early 90s. It looks really good. It looks like things are spelt right. Whoever was the graphic designer who revamped the City of South Lyon's website, I feel like now we're on the same playing field as fellow cities and sister cities. So if you haven't had a chance, take a look at it, because it looks 100% better. With that being said, thank you. Have a good night.
There was a comment at our last meeting asking about the sprinklers over at Historic Village, and those are now repaired, so that's all I have.
I have nothing to say. So, this is the time we go into our closed session.
I'll make the motion that we go into closed session pursuant to Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have to do a roll call.
It's got to be a roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Kimball?
Yes.
Badakis?
Yes.
Busy?
Yes.
Gallus?
Yes.
Bedell?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yes.
Kurzweil?
No.
Motion passes.
That's too bad. You could have grabbed your